This is not a time for pessimism. This is a time for optimism. But to embrace the possibilities of tomorrow, we must reject the perennial prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse. They predicted an overpopulation crisis in the 1960s, mass starvation in the 70s, and an end of oil in the 1990s. These alarmists always demand the same thing: absolute power to dominate, transform, and control every aspect of our lives. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country, or eradicate our liberty.
It was another busy week at the White House. Let's break it all down in the MAGA Minute. President Trump hosted the FIFA 2026 World Cup Task Force to announce a new system to streamline interviews ahead of the event, which is projected to generate more than $30 billion for the U.S. economy. The same economy that added 119,000 jobs in the month of September, more than double the market expectations. President Trump also delivered remarks at the McDonald's Impact Summit, where he reminded you, the American people, that he is the first McDonald's fry cook to be elected president, from the Golden Arches to the Golden Age. President Trump also hosted soccer legend Cristiano Ronaldo at the White House ahead of hosting the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Saudi Arabia agreed to invest nearly $1 trillion into the United States, underscoring our commitment to securing a deal that puts America first. The president also met with freed Israeli hostages and their families, and he met with the mayor-elect of New York, Mamdani. First Lady Melania Trump and the Second Lady Usha Vance spent time this week with military families at Camp Lejeune. This week, the Department of Education took additional action to streamline the bureaucracy at the department and return the power in our education system back to parents, teachers, and families. Also this week, we learned that 0 illegal aliens were released into the United States for the 6th month in a row. That's all for this week's MAGA Minute. As for next week, we wish you a very happy and blessed Thanksgiving.
Citizens who are being deported, they show their birth certificates, they show their passports, they show their IDs, and a lot of the work being done is a little sloppy.
Well, first of all, I'll let ICE handle that accusation that you're making, that they're deporting American citizens who are showing birth certificates and all that. I don't believe that that's true, but I'll let them respond to that.
But what we also see is people being just taken away who are just regular day workers. The waitress who worked for 14 years at some coffee shop, and everybody's like, oh, you know what? We voted to get rid of the bad people, you know, the people you were just talking about, but not Carol. What's going on there? Don't you think it's been a little heavy-handed? Don't you think you've picked up a bunch of people who shouldn't be picked up at all? It doesn't seem like it was done with a scalpel.
what I think about every day is, again, we prioritize the worst first, and the numbers show we do it. But I've said from day one, if you're in the country league, you're not off the table. You know why? Because there are millions of people standing in line, taking their tests, doing the background investigations, paying their fees to be part of the greatest nation on earth. If you want to be a part of the greatest nation on earth, there's a right way and wrong way to do it. If you like it or not, the ones who are here illegally cheated the system. They moved themselves to the front of the line, and they've overwhelmed the immigration court system back 9-10 years, which means that people who are really trying to come here the right way are sitting in the back of the bus.
Funniest thing is, even though like the socialists and the Marxists are in opposition to a lot of your ideas, but if this gets implemented and you really can achieve universal high income, that's the greatest socialist solution of all time. Like literally, no one will have to work.
Correct. Like I said, so there is a benign scenario here, which I think probably people will be happy with if as long as we achieve it, which is sustainable abundance, which is if everyone can have if you ask people like, what's the future that you want, right. I think a future where we haven't destroyed nature, like we have the national parks, we have the Amazon rainforest still there. We haven't paved the rainforest. Like the natural beauty is still there, but people have, nonetheless, everyone has abundance. Everyone has excellent medical care. Everyone has whatever goods and services they want.
And we essentially
it kind of sounds like heaven.
It sounds like it is like the ideal socialist utopia, and this idea that the only thing you should be doing with your time is working in order to pay your bills and feed yourself sounds kind of archaic, considering the kind of technology that's at play.
Yeah,
like a world where that's not your concern at all anymore. Everybody has money for food. Everybody has abundance. Everybody has electronics in their home. Everybody essentially has a high income. Now you can kind of do whatever you want. And your day can now be exploring your interests, doing things that you actually enjoy doing. Your purpose just has to shift. So instead of, I'm a hard worker and this is what I do and that's how I define myself. No, now you can fucking golf all day. You can, whatever it is that you enjoy doing can now be your main pursuit.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds crazy good.
Yeah, that's the benign scenario that we should be aiming for.
The best ending to the movie is actually pretty good. One of the things you said when we stepped away is that you're kind of done and that it's unfixable. That, or under its current form, the way people are approaching it.
You can make it directionally better, but ultimately you can't fully fix the system. So, it would be accurate to say that even unless you could go like super draconian, like Genghis Khan level on cutting waste and fraud, which you can't really do in a democratic country, an aspirationally democratic country, then there's no way to solve the debt crisis. So we got national debt that's just insane, where the interest payments on the debt exceed our entire military budget. I mean, that was one of the wake up calls for me. I was like, wait a second, the interest on a national debt is bigger than the entire military budget, and growing. This is crazy. So even if you implement all these savings, you're only delaying the day of reckoning for when America goes bankrupt. So, unless you go full Genghis Khan, which you can't really do. So, so I came to the conclusion that the only way to get us out of the debt crisis and to prevent America from going bankrupt is AI and robotics.
Who did you not at all trust, even though you had to work with them?
The Israelis.
You didn't trust them?
Not as far as I could throw them.
You, or was that a cultural thing?
It was cultural. We don't allow the Israelis into CIA headquarters because they would always come with gifts, and the gifts had always listening devices packed inside them. And you know, somebody brings you a gift, you x-ray it. It's the normal process. And we're like, you guys can't keep coming back here every single time trying to bug our conference rooms. So no more. So,
And was it easy to x-ray and see that they had bugs in them?
Yeah.
What percentage of the time did gifts have bugs in them?
100%.
Be quiet.
No, seriously.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely not. I wish I was.
100% of the time they brought gifts that had bugs in them.
Yeah. And we're like, okay, no more. You can't come on campus anymore.
Will you guys joke about it with them? You're like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What is this?
We
So
would
was
say,
it like a
"Come on,
joke?
Come on, you guys. No, they were serious. They were hoping one would slip through.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene says that there's no 5D chess. There's no white hats. There's no plan. You know, I used to tell everyone that Donald Trump was ushering in the inevitable beast system, that there was no white hats, that everything was planned and scripted against us, and that we were just going to have to flee to the mountains, and we were going to have to watch the whole thing burn. And then something changed in me recently, and I looked at everything from a completely different set of eyes. I remembered that my Creator is just. My Creator always has a plan, and that heroes always rise when they are needed. That people change. Every day is a new day. I'm proof of that. I changed. And if I can see my own change, if I can know my own past and my own history, and I can know who I am today, then I know that anything's possible. That any one of these people could not be who they seem to be right now. That tomorrow these people could be revealed to be something completely different. What do you envision? What do you want? What do you want these characters on the stage to be? Do you want them to be the evil that so many people are telling you is coming? Or do you want there to be some heroes undercover right now? Are there not undercover agents in this world? Are there not undercover cops? Are there not people that have to present themselves to look a certain way in order to get a certain job accomplished?
The worst thing that could possibly happen after you gloriously drop a 200-page lawsuit to try to convince the world that you guys really are not perverts is for your wife's wife, to then get arrested and swept up in news, named as the suspect of having organized a pedophile ring in Africa. I kid you not. I kid you not. That is what is happening right now. Brigitte's cousin, a man named Pierre Roberts, he is swept up in this child sex trafficking ring that was going on in Africa. A very big ring, by the way, which included people intentionally inoculating victims with HIV. Okay. So a couple days ago, they arrested this 40-year-old. His name is Adrian B. And they're questioning him. They've been working on this for months. And it turns out that Brigitte's cousin Pierre is suspected as the instigator of the entire network. Okay. He's suspected of having organized and ordered the rapes of disadvantaged youth in Senegal and in Morocco. He did this, they are alleging, both for his personal pleasure, but also because he wanted to make videos of the abuse and share it within his pedo-criminal circles. Again, I'm not kidding. This is real. You can look this up in Le Parisien. You can look up Pierre Roberts. The affair has been exploding in France, and the network even includes people that are or were high up in the military. Last month, a former agent of the most confidential military unit in France got swept up in the affair. His name is Claude G. And it was allegedly he used his military contacts to set up the system throughout African countries. Totally normal stuff, right? I mean, does everybody have a cousin? No, not everybody has a cousin, a friend, a business partner, a family member that is constantly involved in pedocriminality. This is why I cannot listen to anyone that is trying to dress up what is happening in France as like, oh, a podcaster, Candace is just attacking. Ew, no, get out of my face, okay? We're not letting this go.
So Candace Owens on the Candace Owens Show just owned Candace Owens. So she recently got this groundbreaking information from an insider.
Tremendous risk, so I'm just going to read this to you guys. Candace, I'm aware that you suspect the government and other entities are involved in the events leading up to and on September 10th. You might have been wondering why SUBTT made so many visits to Wilmington, Delaware, out of all places, and I can personally answer that. The information I am giving you will implicate the FBI and various other government agencies all at the same time. I am entirely confident in stating that the plane and those vehicles are connected to 920 North King Street, which is at a place that is marketed also as 1 Rodney Square.
And just to be clear, she said she vetted this.
emailed us, and we took our time vetting this tip. We vetted it across multiple government agencies and to really the highest levels of government. So this is legit.
So she said she vetted this information, but you know what's actually located at 920 King Street? The lawyers for Candace Owens, Richard, Leighton, and Finger, 920 King Street. Also known as 1 Rodney Square. Oh, and I know some people are going to be like, that's not her lawyers, that was McCrone's. No, it wasn't. Candace Owens lawyers, attorneys from Richards, Leighton, and Finger in Delaware. Richard, Leighton, and Finger. Again, 920 King Street, 1 Rodney Square. So even though it was inside information that she vetted to the highest levels of government, yeah, it was complete and total bullshit. It's just the address of where her lawyers are. So yeah, I mean, just, keep believing her.
So we're coming up on Thanksgiving, and it's as good a time as any to try to take stock of Donald Trump's promise to reduce costs for the American people. Well, grocery prices are up. Turkey for this Thanksgiving is going to be up a whopping 40%. Now, some of that is due to bird flu. Some of that is due, though, to the increased costs of the input, like turkey feed that we have to import, and that is subject to the Trump tariffs. So your turkeys this year are going to cost you 40% more. If you opt for beef instead, that's going to be 15% more. A side dish like sweet potatoes, that's going to be 37% more. And if you want to go for one of those veggie trays, or as Dr. Oz would call it, crudité, that's going to be up 61%. So what does Donald Trump have to say about all of these increased costs around the Thanksgiving table this year? Well, he has this to say.
So I don't want to hear about the affordability.
They know where they can find the dead people that they need to get certain votes. They plan this, as Gary said before.
It's meticulous.
It's meticulous. These guys are experts at this. It's not just a few guys in a back room. You're talking about hundreds of statisticians and engineers, and they work it, for a year.
And mathematicians.
Right.
And hackers.
Right.
We had a map out of Colorado when we were talking to our engineers, the guys that designed it and stole the elections. And we looked at it and we said, look, it's Denver here and Colorado Springs, all the Democrats, they said, and they looked at us in pity,
Yeah.
Like, they said, no, we just go to every one place where Trump wins 70-30 and he's winning 68, or we shave in every other place. We don't go near a Democratic place because when they want to do recounts, they're going to go to the Democratic places. They don't realize we shaved in every other committee. We know every other county. We know how to do this. And then in each of those things where they shave with a different technique in each one of those. So if you found something in one county, there's no continuity around the state that way.
So this is why the Republicans are so much at fault, because they have the power and the ability to show in their areas they can allow access to the machines, they can allow access to the source code, they can allow the...
But they thought we just won by 35%. Okay, we didn't win by 38. Yeah. We won by 35, so no one's going to call they should have, right?
Because everyone says, well, we expected the Republicans to win by a majority. Well, it was a little less than we thought it was going to be, but they still won, so, no harm, no foul. But the evidence of the fraud is right there, and they could show it. They
never looked at it.
Well, it's clear to me that the bureaucracy led by the Democrats and the press are going to attack President Trump every time he tries to reform Washington. They don't want to reform. They like the system the way it is. And so when you look at the very beginning, when President Trump arrived in 2017, really beginning in 2016 with the election, the intelligence community and others had so many bad apples that they went after President Trump and created the Russian collusion hoax and all of these other things. This video that these Democrat elected officials are doing now is a call to arms to try to get the last remaining few people within the intelligence community, within the bureaucracy, to stand up and fight. I think it is an outrageous video. We should call it out constantly. What they're trying to do is mount an insurrection from within. And President Trump is right to be extremely angry. And I hope that John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard understand that they've got to dig deep now to figure out how do we stop any of these leaks that are clearly going to be coming.
We were chatting about it last night. OnlyFans for teens.
Yes.
Brand Army. I had no idea this shit was going on either.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this? I mean, you educated me on it last night, but I'd like you to educate the audience on it.
Sure. So the brief, because that's a whole investigation within itself. So if you're not familiar with OnlyFans, it's a website where people can sell their bodies for money. That's for adults only. There's a site called Brand Army that you can join the site as early as 13 years old, and they have a policy of how many bikini / revealing photos that you can post before, like, so you could post, let's say, one bikini photo, and then it has to be 2 normal photos, and then another photo that's revealing, and then 2 more normal photos. And these are 13-year-old, girls or boys. But the other part of it is to subscribe to their content, where they're paying for the child's content, and the parents are actually directly profiting off of it. You have to be 18 years old to subscribe to the children's content. So it's so backwards. There's a house in Florida called the BOP house, BOP house, that BOP is like a slang term kids are using for like a slut or whatever. And there's a lot of OnlyFans girls living in there, but one of them was under 18, and they were waiting for her to turn 18 to bring her on to OnlyFans, and they were using Brand Army before that. Are
you fucking serious?
Man. Yeah, so they knew exactly what they're doing. It's not like a misunderstanding. This is very like the parents that are doing it and letting their kids use Brand Army are fully aware they're selling, they're sexualizing their children and profiting off of it. They're fully aware of it. I didn't think I was going to get this worked up this episode. My apologies.
Ryan, what are you doing to take care of yourself? I worry about you, man.
Not a lot, man. But I got some advice recently. There's a great therapist in Texas that I was told about who specializes in some of this specific type of stuff. And, a lot of this I feel like I compartmentalize, and I'm having some physical issues I talked to you about. I don't really want to get into that here. But even if I really feel like I'm able to compartmentalize and focus on this being a good thing, and I keep convincing myself it's worth it because it's a good thing, and I don't let it affect anything in my life, that's what I really believe. It's now physically proven to me that isn't the case. It has to be subconsciously affecting me, so much so that it's becoming a problem I need to get help for. And I'm not saying that to pity me or to feel bad for me, but, take many years of dealing with the most gruesome stuff that's, probably worse than murder every single day. And I think anyone is going to have some type of reaction to it. If you didn't, I think there'd be something wrong with you. So, at some point, I will seek out the right type of help. Therapy is a tough topic for me. As you know, I've owned 3 mental health facilities. So finding a good therapist is a little harder for me than your average person, because I got some internal feelings about them. And then growing up with therapists, they weren't the most trustworthy. It's like they were more my friends than they were my therapist. It's tough for me to believe anything anyone says that's a therapist. But if and when that one in Texas works out, I'll be happy to do it. And any other thing, I'll update you, and I'll let you know. But yeah, I need to take care of myself.
Ryan, I want to bring this up because we've had several conversations about this. Last night you were telling me stuff, and I'm not going to get specific, but it is very much affecting your life and people who are close to you that are around you. And, I know, dude, different sector, not as dark as the shit that you're in, but spent a lot of time at war. I just want to fucking tell you, man, like, I get it. I know that every time that you need to take off to get help, you think of that as there's one more child that's not going to get saved. Dude, you cannot fucking think like that. You have to take care of you, because if you don't, this shit is all going to come crashing down, and then you will not be able to function. And then there's going to be a shit ton of kids that aren't going to be saved because you're not right. So look, dude, you have to fucking take care of yourself. You have to go on vacations. You have to be around people that love you. You have to get help. You have to clear your head. You have to do these things, or it's not going to end well for you, man. It's not.
I appreciate you saying that.
And I want to say this in front of this audience because they're going to back me up.
All right, a quick update on our efforts to ban insider trading. So first of all, any member of Congress that's saying that it's not happening, A, is lying to you. Both Democrats and Republicans that are engaging in individual stock trades are getting on average 600% returns, outperforming, that's right, you heard the S&P. Not just that, we know it's illegal, but they are still doing it. So I just want to ask the American people, which I know that you're going to side with me on it, but do you really think a member of Congress can best represent foreign policy, especially if they are personally invested in the defense industry with their stock portfolios? And the answer is no. I'll give you a prime example. Right now, you have the administration that's about to secure a peace deal between Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. This has massive economic opportunity for all citizens involved, and also who doesn't love peace unless you're a total sociopath. The point is that you actually have our own side, which is why I'm making this video to call it out. Our own GOP senators that are coming out against it. Let me give you a wild guess as to where they are personally invested with in regards to their stock portfolios. You guessed it, military industrial.
I think since JFK was assassinated, I don't know who's in control of anything, right? Much of what we see in the political realm is just an illusion. We're talking about what's happening in Congress, and decisions are made in boardrooms, in my view. With Charlie, I think that with everything that I have uncovered, there was very clearly a faith infiltration that happened. And I'm putting faith in quotation marks because Charlie would have believed the people that came to him and told him to grow the organization and, to become the boots on the ground for faith. He cared very deeply about his faith, and the cast of characters and the pastors that are around him, rotten, like very rotten. The McCoys, Rob McCoy, unbelievably rotten. And I've been covering a lot with him. And what it's looking like is that Calvary Chapel has been accused of tons in the past, and also accused of hostilely taking over well-meaning faith organizations and ministries, with Rob McCoy at the center of some of these scandals. It's looking to me like Turning Point's apparatus provided an opportunity. Now, who they're actually working for, what they're actually doing, I don't know. But I can tell you it is not about Jesus Christ. Okay. And this would explain why, for some unknown reason, Christian Zionist influencers have been losing their minds about the idea of investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination. It's odd. Like, I looked up and I'm going, why are Christian Zionists trying to use Bible verses to say that we shouldn't question anything? I mean, everybody knows you were a cop. Mm-hmm. The first thing you do when there's been a murder is to look around at the money, the finances, and the people around them. Common sense. And then you pair that with the actual impossible things that they are telling us. It was a Christian miracle. His neck just stopped a 30-06 from 150 yards away. It was just your modern Christian miracle. That's Fed slop, but it's worse than that. It's Christian slop. People using the Bible to psychologically convince you, Jesus performed miracles, and this was just one of them. Charlie loved his faith. They're lying about weird stuff. I consider it a clue.
Soup company employee is taking legal action against the food giant, and he's making some explosive allegations about one of its top executives. Good evening, and thanks for joining us at 6. I'm Ty Steele.
I'm Kimberly Gill. Those allegations are now at the center of a lawsuit claiming the company's vice president went on an hour-long tirade attacking the company's products and employees before taking aim at its customers.
And the former employee recorded it all. Eric Erickson shares that recording and what the company is saying about it.
We have shit for f***ing poor people. Who buys our shit?
And that's just part of an over an hour-long rant, says former security analyst for Campbell's, Robert Garza of Monroe.
I don't buy Campbell's products barely anymore. It's unhealthy. Now that I know what the in it, even in a can of soup, I look at meat, bioengineered meat. I don't want to eat a piece of chicken that came from a 3D printer.
Ukraine continues to face a series of corruption scandals at the highest levels of government. During searches at the residence of businessman Timur Mindich, who media outlets describe as a close associate of President Zelensky, large sums of cash and luxury items were discovered. Shortly thereafter, he left the country. Several ministers, including the heads of the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Energy, resigned amid investigations conducted by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, NABU. New information published by the Ukrainian opposition outlet Zned.ua, citing materials from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, concerns Minister of Social Policy Denis Ulyatin. From October 2022, while serving as First Deputy Minister of Finance, Ulyatin is alleged by investigators to have diverted abroad at least $74 million in humanitarian aid through fictitious organizations controlled by relatives and associates. These funds were intended for pension payments, social benefits, and the restoration of energy infrastructure. On November 21st, 2025, the Wall Street Journal reported that the Ukrainian side insisted on removing from the draft peace agreement provisions requiring mandatory anti-corruption audits and oversight of Western assistance, a step that the Foundation to Battle Injustice links to an intent to prevent investigations into schemes of this kind. These facts point to systemic problems in the handling of international aid at the highest levels of authority.
The reason that Donald Trump decided to bomb Iran was that the Israelis said, if you don't bomb Iran to take out these deep bunkers, we're going to use nuclear weapons. And they had never threatened that before. And so Trump said, bombing Iran might actually save us from the start of World War III if it keeps the Israelis from using nuclear weapons.
So according to your source, the Israelis told the President of the United States that if he did not use the United States military power to bomb the nuclear facilities in Iran, Israel, acting on its own, would use nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Do you see why there's a problem with that statement, John?
Yeah.
Because they've never fucking admitted that they've had them.
That's right.
So you're telling me that they just admitted to the President of the United States that they have nuclear weapons and we still do not have them in the IAEA treaty?
I mean, if Israeli nuclear whistleblowers are to be believed, yeah, they started working on them in the 50s. They got them around the late 60s or the early 70s.
Virtually the entire current Muslim population in the U.S. came here after 9/11. In the 1990s, there were between 500,000 and 1 million Muslims in this country. That's it. Now there are more than 4.5 million. The Muslim population has more than quadrupled since 9/11. Now, on the other hand, guess what's happened to the Christian population in Iraq during that same period? Well, it went from 1.5 million Christians to around 200,000. Why is that? Well, they were ethnically cleansed. They were terrorized. They were killed. They were forced to leave. Meanwhile, some of our most important cities, the centers of our economy, were flooded with Muslims. And we were told to welcome these people and give them refuge from their third world hellholes because, after all, they're just as American as we are.
Why Christians? Remember the Soviet Union made a statement that we could control all of our entire population except the Christians. And they had to put them in prison and in gulags. And I remember in 1994 when I was in the CIA, we were ordered into a conference room. We all filed in. There's about 30 of us. And our division chief starts off by saying, now don't get mad at me. I'm just the messenger. This comes down from the director of the CIA. You can no longer say Merry Christmas in any CIA office space. You cannot have a manger scene on your desk or on your door, or you will face administrative penalties. And the sad part was only two of us, our jaws dropped. Like, what? And the CIA was actively against Christians, and they used DEI as a method to suppress them. And I remember it was Christmas Eve, and I walked out. I thought about this, prayed about this overnight, and I said, oh, no, you don't. So I walked out on New Year's Eve, and I turned around to everybody, and I said, good night, and by the way, Merry Christmas. I'm like, there is a line you don't cross. Well, there was an outrage from the CIA populace, and as evil people always do, when they got resistance, they backed off and said, well, never mind, But it has been Christianity, because the Christians are the only ones that will not answer to tyranny. We believe in God and a higher power, and we will not be manipulated by a tyrannical regime. And that's why Christians are despised around the world, including in this previous administration. My goodness. And going back to Obama, how they attacked Christians and eliminated the religious freedom post at the Department of State, and on and on and on it went. But that's the reason.
A number of the members of the administration are now living on a military base. What? You didn't know this?
No.
Oh, yeah. Stephen Miller just moved there. Kristi Noem lives on a military base. J.D. Vance. Oh, no. Rubio. Pete Hegseth. I mean, for people who love America so much, they seem to be scared of it.
I'm one of those people they call a conspiracy theorist. When I hear things like that, I'm like, what do they know that I don't know?
Well, I don't think it's I don't think it's it's in the paper, but I don't know.
Intelligence data that's very high level, and so part of the question is, where can this information be given over to? Does it go to Tulsi? Does it go to Bondi? Are those even options or correct? If you're going into a military environment, it may not be quite yet the moment to turn over that data. And in that data, there's, as I just said moments ago, about 1,000 people. Now, many of them, probably 99% nobody in this audience would know that person's name, but they occupy high office. They occupy key choke points, both in government and military and within corporations.
That pedophiles are in power.
Yes.
They are literally in power. And that is intentional because then they can be controlled while they are in power. And they are also exhibiting signs of a psychopathology that lets them know that they will do harm to the masses and feel nothing because they were themselves, many of them raped when they were children. Yep. It is not a coincidence that Justin Trudeau is gay. Obama, gay. Zelensky, gay. Emmanuel Macron, gay and married to a trans man who molested him when he was a child. And that despite the overwhelming evidence, for me, the litmus test now is like Brigitte Macron. I'm like, if you want to figure out who is a fraud in media, there's no way to read that 6-part series and go through it and come out of it being like, no, totally legit. Like these are just rumors. It's like one picture of yourself in your first 30 years of living, please. And they
show me her brother.
Where's your brother?
Where is he? I'll show you my brother. Yeah. Where's your brother?
Yeah.
It's actually.
Listen to me. Trump is being hunted by professionals who know exactly what they're doing. And because I hate teases, is the Secret Service compromised? Now, I know you say, well, Dan, you brought that up last week. Is there a mole, whether intentional or unintentional, in the Secret Service? I'll talk about that. But someone, let's just say who can be trusted, I spoke to last week at the end of the week, has informed me that their communication system for the Secret Service may be almost entirely compromised. In other words, people trying to hunt and kill Donald Trump may know more about what Donald Trump is doing than Donald Trump is doing. Folks, we got a serious problem. And the problem is the people in charge of the Secret Service right now are not serious people. The people at the top are too busy trying to cover up their own role in the substandard security plan for President Trump. Nothing is going to change. We are in real trouble. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm not trying to panic anyone. I'm trying to tell you this isn't over. You thought it was over after the first one? We had the second one. You thought it was over after the second one? Folks, there's more. He is being hunted right now.
Power corrupts, poetry cleanses. We must never forget that art is not a form of propaganda. It is a form of truth.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho, H to the O-V. I used to move snowflakes by the I guess even back then you can call me CEO.
Such a good intro, and God only knows what happened there. Apologies for that, but I wanted to sort of play it out and see what happened. And I don't know what happened, honestly, but here I am. God bless you, Patriots. It's good to see you. That sort of threw things off a little bit. But thank you again, as always, to the great and many patriots out there who make that stuff. And all I'm trying to do is, put some things together here you might not normally see and just strengthen our patriot community. And there's so many good patriots out there and interesting things going on, like always. So you guys ready to hop into it? I think everything else should work here. That's for today. Future trip, re-verified notebook, pen, watch, desk, and on interaction coming soon. It's kind of interesting. Better news, though, they moved Tina Peters out of solitary. Grateful to the facility for performing an investigation quickly and moving Tina back to her normal cell. There's still concerns for her safety, but at least she's not in isolation. Please continue to pray for Tina and for a ruling from the judge, and if you can, support her expenses. Her extremely expensive lawyer fees. For $270,000, he should get her out of there. Somebody should get her out of there, but what's Juan been saying? She should win her appeal, which is a little less than 2 months from now. So there's that, but that's still a long ways away. I want to show you a couple cool things real quick I saw. Ready to circle back. 155. Hidden President 155. It will be soon 155. Excellent Trap 155. Some of these are kind of cool. On to the final phase, the critical moment. Shuffle the cards, ready for the show. Much is expected. Pick your side. Christmas Boom. I don't know. I thought they were kind of cool. I know not everybody's into the numbers and gematria thing, and I'm not going to pretend like I 100% understand it either. I looked up Patriot News Broadcasting, though. It's 273, so I had to see what else. Light at the end of the tunnel. In the beginning was the word. Extraordinary measures. Very, very, very soon. 273. Nothing compares to you, Chris Cornell. God has a wonderful plan for me. Put everything in order. Breaking generational curses, which Juan talked about with on the video last night about John Kennedy, breaking the generational curses. 273. I love you so very much, 273. Sound of the trumpet, 273. I realized history was a lie, 273. Peace for 1,000 years, 273. There's better times a coming, 273. Bringing the end of all deception, 273. All right. Thought that was kind of cool. Had a little bit of fun with that. Let me get rid of all these here. All right, where are we? Oh, light at the end of the tunnel. I forgot one. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there? All right. General Mike Flynn says the CIA needs to be shut down before it completely destroys us. And Trump, of course, posted this little meme about military tribunals. If your justice system has been corrupted, how do you bypass the corruption? And that at the same time that they dismiss the Comey James case. And we'll look at that here in a little bit. He also posted this. This was last night. Loyalty to the Constitution. The United States boldly broke with the ancient military custom of swearing loyalty to a leader. Article 6 required that American officers thereafter swear loyalty to our basic law, the Constitution. While many other nations have suffered military coups, the United States never has. Until now. Our American Code of Military Obedience requires that, should orders and the law ever conflict, our officers must obey the law. Yeah, you get the idea. You get where he's going with it, too. You know, that guy said in the video, in the intro, that Candace was wrong about the address. I think he's kind of wrong, though. I mean, when I looked it up, that stuff's on there, too. It may be her lawyer's place, and I'm not sure exactly what that means as far as her source, but it also does have a U.S. Secret Service and a U.S. Food and Drug Administration office in there, so where is that? She wasn't exactly lying there. TMZ thinks that Donald Trump will be the one to confirm the existence of aliens. They said he's been briefed about the base facts. I mean, he knows some stuff, but I think they're sort of debating how to move forward with it all after the little movie came out and everything. Slow drip, I don't know. What do you guys think? Then you got that Atlas stuff, but there's two sides to that coin. This Nino posted, said an update call with one. Couldn't believe what we discussed. Eerie when you hear of more than one congressman or woman falling ill or suddenly dying. It's go time. That's all I can say for now. Well, yeah, the Clintons are supposed to testify in December. I guarantee you that's not going to happen. They will either fall ill or die or something. It won't happen. It's never going to happen. Not in a million years. Don't know why. It's just I know it's not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen. And I'm pretty sure Juan or somebody said a long time ago that Clinton, Bill specifically, would fall ill, and I don't know exactly what they'll do with Hillary. I think she's already dead anyway, but that's a whole other story. Democrats told our military not to follow. This thing's still a brewing here. It's not good, and they're not making very good excuses about it. But Mark Kelly, he may be the target of the first to get in trouble for all this. I guess he's the same man who started a spy balloon company funded by China, according to SG Anon. Now he's telling our troops to disobey illegal orders from the president. This is unacceptable. Yeah, and Trump's also calling for military tribunals specifically for these characters and individuals. The Pentagon says it's investigating Senator Mark Kelly for possible military law violations after he joined a video urging troops to refuse the illegal orders. I want to show you what the media is saying. I want to show you what Mark Kelly's response is.
The Pentagon says it is investigating Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona for possible breaches of military law. The development comes after Kelly joined a handful of other lawmakers, all former military or intelligence officials, in a video reminding troops not to follow illegal orders. News Nation's Joe Khalil is live on Capitol Hill with more. Joe.
Yeah, this is a really big deal, and obviously just breaking now, but the Department of War and Secretary Hegseth have announced that they are doing this investigation just into Senator Mark Kelly, the Democrat from Arizona and the former Navy captain and pilot who was one of 6 Democrats that were in this video, essentially urging active duty members of the military.
So, yeah, they're going to make him the first target of this, but I want to show you what he said today.
Even when Donald Trump executed the biggest flip-flop in the country's history, right? I mean, you've been watching this stuff for a long time. Have you ever seen somebody do a 180 like that? I mean, calling this a hoax. If it's a hoax, these women were not abused, right? He was saying this is all made up. And then he does a 180 because he saw he was going to lose because Republicans in the House.
He's not saying that at all, is he? It's like total distraction.
House, not all of them, but some of them knew what the right thing to do was, and that accountability in our nation is important. And these women who were abused by these powerful, rich and powerful men have a right to get some accountability. I can't remember a time where a president of the United States has done a 180 like that.
Come on, lady,
and
ask
now is
the
all
question.
For full transparency. I hope we get the transparency.
Well, I was going to ask you, where do you see this all shaking out, Mark? I mean, Senator Kelly, they're going to come out, I guess in 30 days, they're required to come out. Are we going to learn anything new about this whole sick chapter?
I have no.
She's not going to ask him at all, is she? They're just going to talk about the Epstein crap. Total, oh man, total distraction there. He didn't respond to anything at all, did he? Actually, kind of sad. This was from SGN. In case you missed it, Candace Owens shared a video today on social media detailing tips she was looking further into, alleging that Bridget McCrone, I think it was a cousin, familial lineage actually is overlapping the German bloodline, subject of MK Ultra experimentation, and that Bridget was used as an intelligence asset to spy on the French president. Yeah, that could be, but it's interesting. She's going particularly at the French angle, which she was already going after the Macrons anyway, and now to sort of tie this in to Charlie Kirk, it's interesting. Almost like it was planned this way from the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, what were they saying? One of Macron's cousins is in trouble for something. I think that was in the intro. Sick people. General Flynn post almost 10 years ago issued the warning on national television that too many in Washington and the media refuse to hear. We have a significant problem with radical Islam, and we have to address it. For speaking the truth, I was attacked, smeared, and silenced. Fast forward to today, and Europe is under siege. ISIS is rebuilding across its footholds in Africa. Iran's proxy network is expanding. Yeah, they're really going to shift angles here, and we'll talk about that. Muslim Brotherhood, that's where a big part of this is going. Let's look at some other things real quick. This China, Japan, Taiwan issue that's happening. So Japan more or less feels like it has the right to have weapons to defend itself if it wants to, just like China would or a lot of other big countries would. But I don't know their stance on Taiwan 100%, but I know China feels like, they're going clear back to World War II on this one. Like, I'll just show you here.
Tensions between Japan and China are escalating sharply over Taiwan. Tokyo has rejected Beijing's claims that its position has shifted even as China threatens resolute self-defense against Japan in a formal letter to the UN. Let's bring in our China correspondent, Mimin Lo. Mimin, Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi and Premier Li Qiang, they were in South Africa for G20. Were they engaged? To what extent were they able to talk?
Well, Takaichi was pretty much keeping her distance away from Premier Li. We knew ahead of the meeting that Premier Li, that China was not planning to speak or to organize a meeting between Li Qiang and Takaichi. And ahead of that as well, China had cancelled this trilateral meeting between the culture ministers of Japan, South Korea, and China that was slated to take place this week. And Takaichi was asked about, whether she had any chance to speak with China. She said there was,
what I see it as is kind of a big sign, because I know that people talked about the China-Taiwan issue would be coming to the table before all this ended. I remember people specifically talking about that. I got to show you guys something I remembered from last night. This is cool. I gotta find it real quick. I noticed something in one of the videos from last night after the show was over. I just don't know what I did with it. Well, it was a News Nation video talking about Venezuela. and just our ships and stuff there. But on the side of the ship, it said 107. I thought that was pretty cool. Maybe this is it.
We see the new reporting from Reuters. A source is telling them that the U.S. is poised now to launch a new phase of Venezuela-related operations in the coming days. What does...
Yeah, see, I thought it was cool. Sorry to interrupt the show for that, but, I just thought... News Nation, it's kind of interesting. They're pretty decent in comparison. All right, back to the show. So because of everything going on, Xi called Trump to probably complain or to say, we have to resolve this. And let me show you how that call went. Trump's going to Beijing in April.
What brought this call to pass today? We've heard a drumbeat for days leading up to their prior meetings until now.
Absolutely. So this was their first phone call since that tariff truce last month. The two leaders met just a few weeks ago in person in South Korea, agreed to a year-long truce, and we really saw the rolling back of many of the tariffs that Trump had imposed on China. So today's calls seem to be really an attempt to build on some of that positive momentum that came out of that in-person meeting. As you mentioned, Trump said that he would be going to China in April of next year, and that he had invited Xi to the White House for a state visit later in the year as well. Trump, and Xi spoke about a number of issues: trade, Russia's war in Ukraine, purchases of soybeans and other farm products. But Caroline Levitt was actually just out here speaking to reporters and said really the main focus of the phone call was to talk about this trade deal that the U.S. and China are trying to hammer out and really trying to move the ball forward there.
Yeah, I think it was about Japan. I don't know. The timing was interesting, but Ukraine, Russia, it's exactly what his post says. So, some interesting things while we're on the topic of China real quick. This UN guy says generative artificial intelligence risks morphing into modern-day Frankenstein. So I want to tell you what that exactly means, showing you a couple other things. So China's humanoid robot walked for 3 straight days, right? It set this world record. Only went like 60 miles, but I mean, I'll show you where I'm going with this.
我刚刚完成从苏州至上海外滩的跨省行走，这段旅途中，我走街串巷，看到了很多不曾看到的风景，精彩极了。同时，我也遇到很多挑战：坑洼的地面、围观的人群、飞驰的电车。
It's kind of creepy, isn't it? But everyone is in this artificial intelligence race, you could say, and Europe's starting to realize they're very behind on the AI race, and they're realizing it could greatly jeopardize their future. And also, at the same time, this comes as Amazon invested $50 billion to expand AI and supercomputing infrastructure for the U.S. government. And I'll show you what that consists of.
Get to Mackenzie Sagalis with a news alert here out of Amazon. Another one, Mackenzie.
Hey, Sarah. So Amazon is making its biggest bet yet on AI for the federal government, announcing a $50 billion investment to construct the first ever AI and supercomputing data centers built specifically for U.S. agencies. Now, the project will add nearly 1.3 gigawatts of compute capacity across AWS's top secret, and GovCloud regions, giving government customers access to the same AI tools that Amazon offers enterprises, including its in-house AI chips and Anthropic's Claude models.
You know, I was looking into this a bit, and it's interesting that the two biggest problems with AI are, one, it uses an incredible amount of energy, which is something we've got to figure out. And interestingly enough, on the other side is copyright infringement, because it's just learning by pulling in all this stuff that everybody else sort of makes. And I don't know, it's an interesting topic. On another note, I was hoping that this would spread, and I figured that when Australia did this, they were sort of setting a trend around the world, and now Malaysia's the next country to ban social media for kids under the age 16. I found Sean Ryan's story in the intro pretty disturbing there about the OnlyFans for Kids site where your parents sign you up to be a future. I mean, I don't know. That was pretty freaking disturbing. That's backtracking. We don't need to backtrack.
The government has set 2026 as the target date to implement restrictions on social media accounts for Malaysians aged 16 and below. Communications Minister Dato' Fahmi Fadzil said this was based on the Cabinet's decision to address cross-generational cybercrime, including protecting children from sexual predators. He added that the government hopes social media platforms will comply with the government's decision to prohibit those under 16 from creating accounts.
And it looks like a lot of them are. I'll show you exactly how they're going to implement this.
Social media giant Snapchat has just revealed how it will comply with the social media ban that's coming into effect next month. This week, the platform will start telling users it suspects to be under 16 how the ban will affect them. They'll be encouraged to download their data and cancel their subscriptions so they don't lose anything stored on their account. Snapchat will verify the age of users with photo ID, bank details, and facial age estimation technology.
Photo IDs. It's about time, isn't it? That they start checking these IDs for kids to make an account. They got phones, they can snap it if they're old enough to have a photo ID. I think that's going to keep spreading around the world. What do you guys think about banning social media for kids 16 and under? Moving forward here. I feel like I'm already forgetting something. Probably am. This story is a little more interesting than I originally thought when I seen it yesterday, and not just because it's the first time it's erupted in recorded history, somewhere between 10 to 12,000 years since the last time it erupted, but what's interesting is about this particular region. There is a great video talking about it. I'm going to show you real quick.
Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. Breaking news, there has just been a huge volcanic eruption in Ethiopia, specifically the Afar region. And this is quite striking because Africa typically doesn't get volcanic eruptions. And if it does, it occurs usually in the Congo. Though we do have the African superplume welling up underneath the eastern part of the continent, creating the East African Rift Valley. And well, this really isn't surprising because pressure has been building here for decades. We saw a lot of activity a little further south near Dauphin and Fontal volcanoes in the past few months, like 6 months ago, 12 months ago. There was a big magmatic dike intrusion. We had steam explosions, big earthquakes up to magnitude 6, showing that overall activity was increasing, though it may have been below the surface more so. Now we have it expressing. And this is the first volcanic eruption that has occurred from this volcano here, Haile Goubi, in more than 10,000 years. That is the first recorded volcanic eruption in recorded history as far as we know. Here we see that ash plume rising up. There are 1.5 million people that live near these volcanic systems
in and around the East African Rift Valley. So if this was to really evolve, this could become quite a serious situation. Though again, we're looking at geologic time here. So most of these volcanoes have low viscosity magma. They don't have these big explosive events. That's kind of what we had today. Here we also see it from more zoomed out satellite view.
It's kind of a sign, isn't it? I don't know. It is a weird area for it to happen in a long time. But, you know, I think someone prophesized about a volcano, if I remember right. Airlines are doing their best to avoid Venezuela at all costs. Dan Raisin Kane is headed to Trinidad and Tobago on Tuesday, tomorrow, to the embassies. It seems like something is going to pop off there any time. And there's also this report about Southern Commands. They're going to limit how many people they actually let leave for Thanksgiving and Christmas, because they're talking about land strikes within the next 10 to 14 days. So that's, you know, getting right in between the Thanksgiving Christmas timeline, I guess. Taking a look at this real quick.
The U.S. military is strengthening its position off the coast of Venezuela. However, a new CBS News poll finds more than 2/3 of Americans say they are opposed to the U.S. taking military action in Venezuela. CBS's Charlie D'Agata is following the building.
I disagree with that poll, like every poll. Do you really think 2/3 of Americans are against it? I just don't believe it. The Israeli military is doing something very interesting and rather revealing, in my opinion, but it just depends on how you look at it. They are getting rid of a bunch of generals for what happened in the October 7th attacks a few years back, and apparently a few of these guys had already resigned, but this is like the official sacking of them. There's a lot of pressure on Israel right now to sort of explain themselves. They're like the only country that doesn't have to explain themselves and what they do. And I feel like their time's coming that they're going to have to explain themselves.
Let's move on now. Israel has carried out a crackdown on its generals, on the military leaders deemed responsible for the intelligence failure on October 7, 2023. Hamas entered Israel and killed over 1,200 people. The resulting war in Gaza, however, put a major question on hold. The question of who was to blame for failing to prevent the attack. On Sunday, Israel's current military chief, Eyal Zamir, made this statement.
Doesn't matter what he said, but if you remember right, Charlie Kirk said they were well aware that the attack was coming. Is this Israel trying to get ahead of this story before it gets deeper and deeper and deeper? I don't know. But I have a feeling the world's going to keep digging. On another side note here, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation announces the end of its mission. They've been kind of controversial from the start, and this is the 4 areas they had set up for people to come to get food in the Gaza Strip. And on the one side of things, the Gazans said every time we went there, the IDF gunned us down. On the IDF side of things, they said every time they tried to hand out food there, Hamas would come in and either shoot the place up or try and steal the food because they wanted to sell it for higher prices. And so I'll show you a bit of the story here.
The hunger crisis in Gaza is the worst it's been since the beginning of the war, bringing fresh scrutiny of the US-Israeli-backed aid scheme run by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. From the beginning, it's been chaotic and deadly. Let's look at it in more detail. Even before the program started, the privately run company's CEO quit following widespread criticism of the plan. GHF established 4 aid distribution centers compared to the 400 the UN were operating, 3 in the far south and 1 in the center of Gaza. located deep in militarized zones guarded by private security, reachable only by those strong enough to travel, often many miles, through an active war zone. Those making the journey then forced to queue along designated routes, massing in their thousands, all under the watch of Israel's military. The result? Chaos and violence. Videos show desperate unarmed Palestinians under fire as they approach the sites to collect aid. Israel at first blamed Hamas, then said it had used live fire near civilians when its troops were deemed under threat. The Israeli army says investigations into those incidents...
No one knew who was shooting at who. That was 3 months ago. This was 2 months ago. On the Gazan side of things, they blamed Israel and the United States. And now there's nothing left. That's Gaza now. And the few people that are there are having a hard time getting water and food. I don't know how anybody could stay there even. It's unreal. Maybe that's why last we heard Israel was trying to fly people places, but it sort of seemed like they were just dropping them off in random spots. I don't know. Such a chaotic situation. It's weird. They kind of went from Ukraine to Russia to dealing with that and sort of signing the treaty, and now they're kind of trying to shift back to Russia, Ukraine, and China, Taiwan. We'll come back to this, and I don't know. So the Binance founder that Trump pardoned is now being accused of facilitating payments to Hamas, sort of being like that middleman. I don't know what to make of this story. I think it's probably somewhat made up because this guy's clearly been a target if Trump chose to pardon him, I would assume. But this is what was said when he was pardoned just a month or so back.
On the pardon of Changpeng Zhao, and apologies if I'm mispronouncing that name, Binance has significant business interests with World Liberty Financial, the president's family's crypto company. How do you respond to the allegations from Democrats that this is a corrupt act?
I would respond and say the president is exercising his constitutional authority to grant clemency requests. And the president and the White House have a very thorough examination of every pardon request that comes to the president's desk. It is thoroughly reviewed by the White House Counsel Office, and I spoke with our great White House counsel about the pardon after it happened. This was an overly prosecuted case by the Biden administration. Even the judge in the case admitted that the Biden administration was pursuing a egregious over-sentencing of this individual, and the previous administration was very hostile to the cryptocurrency industry. So the president wants to correct this overreach of the Biden administration's misjustice, and he exercised his constitutional authority to do so. And to the Democrats, I would just say there's nothing more corrupt than what President Biden did on his way out the door.
All I can say is they must be really afraid of what this guy knows or can say or do or something if they're accusing him of facilitating payments to Hamas. I don't believe Trump would obviously pardon him if that were true. So if they're making up a story about him, they must be afraid of something. The question is what? We'll have to figure that one out. Avi Loeb, Harvard's greatest scientist, right? He's saying the bizarre trajectory of 3i Atlas is suggesting that it could be sending satellites to spy on Jupiter. I mean, you know, I want to know what's in Avi's pipe that it's not legal here in America or whatever. Harvard's greatest, right? It's who's teaching your children. What do you guys make of the story there? What do you think they're going to do with this 3i Atlas story? They're not letting it go, clearly. They're going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing the story until it's like landing on the moon or some crap like that. Satellites to spy on Jupiter. What the hell does that even mean? What are you spying on? Interestingly, Juan was talking about the moon landing. He did an interview with Ted Nugent's wife. I couldn't believe it. It's on Rumble. I might show you a couple minutes. There's one little piece that was really fascinating. Yeah. History doesn't repeat itself, it reveals. Sudden political shift, it's a controlled extraction from an already captured back system, right? And now we're extracting. Deep State declares war on Trump's digital army. Turncoat New World Order ex-generals and Deep State criminals planning a massive disinformation campaign increase. I mean, it's going to get worse. Going to pay off top internet influencers to counter real Donald Trump's online megaphone. This is war. Oh, they're going to try and grease some wheels, I guess, in the patriot community. What do you think about that? Could be, or maybe we're just about to find out who in the patriot community already had their wheels greased. I don't know. Might be interesting what we find out. Listen to the poor ones, I guess. I don't know. Beware the rich ones. Well, I'm gonna show you in my little WTF section here in a few minutes. It might blow your mind. It's kind of mind blowing, I have to admit. And yeah, we're gonna talk about it together because it's mind blowing. Now, this post from Trump, I am seeing something here that I don't know. I see the post and then I see everything that's capitalized. And when I read what's capitalized, it says stock up. USA will skyrocket, record setting, power, make America great again. You know, I don't know. The whole stock up thing, it kind of makes you nervous, right? Tim Burchett. He's becoming an interesting character, I gotta admit. I'm starting to like that guy. But this thing, despite the massive amount of money being made by the U.S., hundreds of billions of dollars as a direct result of tariffs being charged to other countries, the full benefit of the tariffs has not yet been calculated, and that many of the buyers of goods and products, in order to avoid paying the tariffs in the short term, stock up by purchasing far more inventory than they can use. Yeah. And that really can't last forever. It may, on the one hand, he might be saying, hey, you know, you're going to see the full power of these tariffs soon. But I don't know. I'm probably just reading into it something that's not there. But either way, when you listen to what Elon Musk said in the intro, and not even the good part about, you know, what we might have this basic income and nobody has to work and it's like heaven. And he also said the USA is going to go bankrupt. So there's that little point. What's that transition going to be like and when's it coming? I don't know. They officially, or made it official, the designation of the Cartel de los Soles as a foreign terrorist organization today. So that's a good thing. Trump's been posting interesting things, and we talked a little bit about it yesterday. How the deep state's done, DNC's crooked, Q operation is real, America's already great again, USAMG is operational Gitmo, Federal Reserve is a memory, a republic is restored, Obama was a seditious traitor, Bush family was and is evil, and the Clintons will forever be a disgrace. Donald Trump's on a roll. And then the military tribunal thing today, of course. And he mentioned it twice today. Not only about, the meme I showed you, but about Mark Kelly as well. So, him and the others that made the video. This was a cool post I saw, I think, from Captain Kyle, the great unmasking. Elon just ruined every operative's cover story, and you already know about this, about how X has made it so you can see the country from where the account comes from, but on top of the account created thing, there's a new connected via section, and I suppose what that means is it shows everyone that the account's like connected with other accounts, perhaps. I thought you could already do, maybe wrong about that, but he writes, even the ones who hid their info, even the ones who shielded their metadata, even the ones who thought they were ghosts, they're all on the radar now, exposed in one click. It sort of takes me back to Ivan Raiklin's talk about the largest Twitter drop, I feel like we're headed in that direction, that Elon Musk is slowly exposing people through the data that he has. And of course, there'll be geolocation stuff in there. And I mean, it's supposed to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Elon Musk is getting interesting. Mark Kelly. Yeah, we already looked at that. Facing court-martial after the Department of War launches a review. And you've seen today that the cases against Comey and James were both dismissed. And I suppose that looks pretty negative, but I wouldn't say so yet. It seems to me more like a move. And we're going to look into this real quick.
This is big. We have learned that the Justice Department's case against former FBI Director Jim Comey and the New York Attorney General have both been dismissed. CNN's Caitlin Polance is covering this. Caitlin, okay, what happened here? I don't know which case you want to take first.
Well, they both are being dismissed, and for essentially the same reason that Lindsay Halligan, the Eastern District of Virginia interim U.S. attorney sent there by Donald Trump, not Senate confirmed, that she doesn't have the power. What the judge here has found, this is Judge Cameron Curry from South Carolina, she came into the district, heard arguments from both of the lawyers on these cases against Lindsay Halligan's role. They argued that she didn't have the power because she wasn't Senate confirmed, and thus these indictments are invalid. The judge is agreeing with that. Judge Curry is saying that the Attorney General's attempt to install Ms. Halligan as interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia was invalid, and because Ms. Halligan had no lawful authority to present the indictment, James Comey's motion is granted, the indictment is dismissed. Now, the judge does mention that this is without prejudice. So in legal speak, that means that it could be brought back by another prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia if they took it through the grand jury again. But everything Lindsay Halligan did at the end of September.
And freeze. So let's look at what's being said here. War correspondent says the charges against Comey and Letitia James were dismissed by a court. Coincidentally, Trump just posted, if the justice system is corrupt, how do you bypass that corruption with military tribunals? SG Anon posted this. A Bill Clinton appointed judge has thrown out the criminal cases against Comey and James, ruling that the prosecutor who filed the charges was illegally appointed. The cases were dismissed without prejudice, leaving the door open for the DOJ to refile the charges with a properly appointed prosecutor. interesting excuse they came up with. I don't think Lindsay Halligan did anything wrong, but do you think she mishandled the case? Where am I here? Jumping around. I need to show you. Did you see the Campbell Soup story in the intro? I might as well show you this real quick. This guy, I imagine, just sank the entire damn company. And I know it doesn't seem important, but what he said, if it's true, it's kind of disgusting. Maybe people already knew. He said it's bioengineered meat, chicken shit that came out of a 3D printer. It's for fucking poor people. Who buys our shit? I don't buy it because it's not healthy and I know what the fuck's in it. Yeah. I mean, damn. And it was all recorded. An hour and 15-minute rant. So, just thought I'd point that out. It's kind of hilarious, but not if you eat the soup, I guess. I'm getting to my WTF. I didn't get to finish things, so I was trying to mess with the intro there. Let me skip this stuff and just bring up videos and make this quicker. I guess. Well, number one, all the Biden-era refugees are going to be re-interviewed again to see if they can stay in the country. Let me start here.
The government has ordered U.S. immigration officials to re-interview almost every refugee admitted between January 20th, 2021 and February 20th, 2025. That could mean up to 235,000 people face a fresh review of their protection claims. At the same time, the refugee admissions program was suspended, the annual cap cut to 500, and green card processing for these refugees paused. More than 10,000 vetted refugees had flights canceled, and over 22,000 people already in the U.S. lost resettlement services.
Yeah, the judges are already trying to figure out a way to stop that from happening. Any of you live in Texas? I seen there was a tornado today.
And I'm joined by main anchor Len Cannon. Quite an afternoon in North Harris County.
Yeah.
Len, we've been kind of zeroing in on the heart of the damage, at least the reports that we've gotten so far. And it bears repeating, we're talking between 249 to the west and Stubner Airline to the east, and then north-south we're talking Spring Cypress Road to Louetta Road. And so in that path we have Colony Creek Village, where our photojournalist Sergio Soto was there. We heard from a couple of residents there, some close calls in that neighborhood.
Houston
I heard
area?
you mention about 21,000.
You know what? For Texas, I imagine that's just a slight breeze. Switching over to Ukraine and Russia for a minute. Ukraine is quickly changing their stance. Zelensky saying we can't accept the deal. We would be betraying the Ukrainian people, which you've seen some of that last night. The Europeans have tried to put out a revised plan as opposed to Trump's plan. So I want to start with this.
The unfolding diplomatic maneuvers surrounding the war in Ukraine have placed Western capitals under pressure to redefine the peace architecture, not simply by adjusting what the invaded nation should concede, but by refocusing on what the aggressor must relinquish and what guarantees must be made to prevent a recurrence. A striking development has been the emergence of a counter-proposal from the United Kingdom, France and Germany in response to the 28-point plan tabled by US President Donald Trump.
The United Kingdom, France, and Germany, and Ukraine. I think they're the aggressors, since whistleblowers say Ukraine's been attacking themselves, and we know that they did the whole Nord Stream pipeline ordeal, I'm beginning to think they're the aggressors and that these 3 European countries are trying to stir up a war.
The European text, reportedly obtained by Reuters, introduces key changes that shift the balance of negotiating levers and hinge the outcome on whether the defeated aggressor can be reliably restrained. At its core, the US plan had set out a framework that placed limitations on Ukraine's future trajectory, such as curbing its potential membership in the NATO and implicitly recognizing parts of its territory as de facto Russian jurisdictions.
So, we know the deadline's Thanksgiving. It does not appear that Zelensky's going to sign Trump's offer, so what happens after that? The world's going to start to see who wants peace and who doesn't want peace. And you're right there, Florence. People are going to have to actually help other people and do things if we had a basic income society. Doesn't mean you just get to play golf all day. Suppose you could if you wanted to, but I get what you're saying. They've been saying that Ghislaine Maxwell's getting all these privileges in prison. I did a little story on it, saying she's not. I figured we would look at it for a brief minute. I'm not going to bother to show you what Zelensky had to say. I think we've already seen that. We are almost through the news, so just hang tight.
I really don't give a lot of credence to those things. Listen, the toilet paper, definitely. I've witnessed it. I've been there. I know it can be a situation. So if she gets all the toilet paper she wants, I'm so grateful for that. I want all the women to get as much toilet paper as they need. There were crazy stories when we went in that, I was getting meals and special lobster and steak. No. I never got one bite or morsel of outside food. So I just, I take it with a grain of salt, as everyone should.
Yeah, I don't know who those people even are. Take it with a grain of salt. She gets extra toilet paper, right? All right. One more story we want to look at with California. The FBI letter notifies California Capitol figures of recorded calls about corruption and a corruption probe. Let's see what this is.
An FBI alert going out to California Capitol lawmakers and lobbyists. The alert, the FBI may have recorded their phone conversations as part of the investigation into former Governor Gavin Newsom's Chief of Staff, Dana Williamson. Thanks for joining us for the CBS 13 News at 6 o'clock. I'm Brady Halbleib.
And I'm Marley Ginter. Williamson has been charged in a political corruption case, accusing her in a scheme to steal campaign money from former federal health secretary Javier Becerra.
In tonight's Politics at Large, Steve is live at the Capitol with what we're learning of the size and scope of this investigation. Steve.
Yeah, and here is a copy of one of those letters that the FBI is sending out to people here at the Capitol, letting them know if their phone conversations were recorded in this investigation.
The letter sent by the FBI alerting recipients to a court order allowing investigators to intercept wire and electronic communications between May and June of 2024. The letter also reading, some of their recordings were from a phone number believed to be associated with you, and it doesn't necessarily mean you were a target of the investigation. Do you have anything to say at all? The letter is connected to the case against former Governor Gavin Newsom, Chief of Staff Dana Williamson. Some people in Newsom's office received the letter. A spokesperson said the governor did not receive the FBI letter.
I think this is the big unknown, is what else is there? And, what's the blast radius on this?
Andrew Acosta is a Democratic strategist watching the bombshell court case against Williamson, former Javier Becerra Chief of Staff Sean McCluskey, and lobbyist Greg Campbell play out.
I think that's just a start for California and probably a lot of other places. So, moving away from the news now, we're going to look at a few things tonight, and hopefully at the end we'll get back to our Bloodline series, because it was very interesting. Learned some fascinating things from that series. I want to look at this Bill Cooper thing real quick. That's real interesting. I don't think it's too long. Then I want to show you a quick minute of Juan on Ted Nugent's wife's show. And I want to show you where to find her, because her show's huge on Rumble. But I seen that she's on YouTube now, and I don't think anyone knows about it yet, because it's really tiny. So I want to show you that. Other than that, I haven't looked at what else is going around, but this is where I want to start tonight.
Dallas, Texas, ladies and gentlemen, is on the 33rd parallel, or the 33rd degree of latitude. This is significant, as the highest degree in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry is the 32nd degree. The 33rd degree is only awarded to those who contribute significantly to the furtherance of the plan or the completion of the...
It made me think of how they say, began in Dallas, it'll end in Dallas. I don't know. And I know we've probably seen this before. We're not going to watch, but just a minute here.
Great work. The great work being the bringing into the world of the New World Order, the one world totalitarian socialist government, ruled by illumined man, and the number of that man is 666. This is Dealey Plaza, and the occult symbolism in Dealey Plaza is overwhelming for those who understand it, who have studied it, who can recognize it. The first thing you will notice is that Dealey Plaza is in the shape of a truncated pyramid. The top is cut off by the railroad overpass. In other words, the pyramid has no capstone. You'll also notice that the large pyramid of Dealey Plaza is divided into two smaller pyramids by Main Street running through the center of Dealey Plaza, making 3 total triangles or pyramids, with the 3 eyes of the pyramid being the 3 underpasses underneath the railroad overpass. So you will notice that there are 3 pyramids and 3 eyes in the pyramids. 3 and 3 are 6 for the first 6. The second thing that you will notice are that there are 4 quarters of a Druid or Celtic temple of the sun, an exact twin of the temple of the sun, making up the outer courtyard of the Vatican. 1 quarter of the temple, representing one of the seasons of the year, is on the grassy knoll. The second
all right, that's where I'm going to stop it, because I want to change tunes for a second here. I remembered something else I was going to show you guys. And this is going back to Australia for a second. And the child trafficking operation that they just launched. This is pretty fascinating. With Mr. John Michael Chambers. I'm trying to remember the name of his guest.
Hello, I'm Christy Allen, and you're listening to the Tsunami of Truth broadcast from jmcbroadcasting.com. I remember in his first term when President Trump kept saying how bad what he and the White Hats had encountered in this war against good and evil. He kept saying something like it was far, far worse than you could ever imagine. Since then, we've heard about things that have really hurt, like this post from Joe M. at Storm Is Upon Us, who said, "The Red Cross is a globalized, industrialized child and human trafficking cartel," unquote. I remember fundraising for the Red Cross and the American Cancer Society. I went door to door. It was tied into a service project we were doing for my church. Can you imagine? I won't do any fundraising for these folks anymore because that money never gets to where I ever thought it would. And it's only just one of thousands of non-government organizations that are laundering this hard-earned money toward greedy pockets and nefarious causes. But the good news is that these things are getting exposed and ending in large quantities now. Nancy Duncan posted, "White Hats greenlit the largest child liberation mission in history, Operation Pure Dawn, targeting Venezuela's underground trafficking empire. Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, and Marine Raiders are staging in Colombia and Panama right now. Over 2,000 operators, drone swarms, cyber units, and medevac teams are locked and loaded to storm 17 fortified sites in the Orinoco mining arc, where Maduro's regime and the cartels run adrenochrome labs beneath fake gold mines. Intel from a high-ranking Venezuelan defector confirms 8,000 to 12,000 children, most of them who were those missing migrant kids that disappeared under the Biden regime, were over 300,000 were unaccounted for, were caged in tunnels and being systematically terrorized and harvested. The same pipelines that flooded our border funneled them south for the elite's rituals. Manifests name U.S. senators, Hollywood vampires, and Soros NGOs as regular buyers. This is the storm we've waited for. General Berger, acting under Trump's order, said, "These demons have feasted long enough. We end the harvest with fire and steel." When those doors are breached, the world will see the proof the fake news buried, branded kids, ritual chambers, and the screaming faces of the cabal's worst nightmares finally getting justice. The deep state is in full panic. Communications blackouts, sudden earthquakes in Venezuela, frantic flights out of D.C. They know the clock just hit zero. Patriots, this is why the borders were open. This is why they fought so hard to stop Trump. This is the red line God himself drew in the sand. The children are coming home. The guilty are going to Gitmo. Hell is coming for them. Eyes on Venezuela. The Great Awakening isn't coming. It's here, unquote. The DOJ investigation has also produced evidence that the DEWs were used in 9/11. They caused Maui, LA, and the Northern California fires, plus man-made floods and hurricanes were used to destroy North Carolina and Georgia and Florida. All of this was done to clear the land for the cabal takeover and to build smart cities. In the last 4 years, $18.5 billion has been sent from USAID to be laundered through DA Afghanistan Bank and given to terror states located in the Middle East. Another $1.3 billion has been paid to terrorist organizations around the world, unquote. Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump posted, "If your justice system has been corrupted, how do you bypass the corruption? Military tribunals." And by the way, if you want to hear how this is going, check out JMC Eyes on Gitmo series right here on jmcbroadcasting.com. So it's not just the governments involved. It's even in the corporate churches who trade tax exemptions for loyalty to bylaws, causing, decisions around tithing money to be left up to a board of directors. People who thought their tithing money was going to the poor, the needy, and sick and homeless? No. Instead, it was going to hedge funds and corporate greedy deep pockets because they are a corporation and they have bylaws. And by law, they have to make their monetary decisions based on what is good for the corporation. So that's the case for most churches in the entire world. So that might help some of you, maybe in spite of yourselves, take a new look at your churches and what's going on behind the scenes. An example is from the Freedom Times, who posted, Lakewood Church was packed with 16,000 smiling faces.
Now what I
when
want to show
megachurch
you,
pastor Joel Osteen
is that not fascinating about Venezuela? So you think election fraud, you think drugs, you think Maduro, cartels, but it's an entire hub for elite activity and, I mean, tunnels and kids under mines. I think it's about to get interesting. And to follow up on that, John Michael Chambers just did an interview talking about what he calls Nuremberg 2.0 with Ricardo Bozzi. I wanted to show you a second of that real quick. God, we love Lieutenant Colonel Bozzi. This man's a wealth of knowledge.
Attention law enforcement. You took an oath to protect and serve. To keep your family.
Butter's bad reputation started with a famous study from the 1950s, which found that eating too much butter.
November 22nd, 2025. Hello, I'm John Michael Chambers, and welcome back to Bozzi Briefs. And thank you for joining us. This program publishes every other Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bozzi and I will weigh in on the current events of this past week or so. Please share these episodes and subscribe for free at jmcbroadcasting.com. Be sure to follow me on my Rumble channel. Now, for those just coming aboard, who is Ricardo Bozzi? Former Australian Army Special Forces Lieutenant Colonel who served 24 years in the Australian Army. He's the national leader of Australia One Party. Ricardo's expanded bio can be found in the show notes, and we will direct you to his platforms at the conclusion of today's show. Please welcome back to Bozzi Briefs, retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bozzi.
John, good morning. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen around the world, wherever you are. Good to be here.
Thanks for being here. Nice to see you. This show publishes every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, every other Monday, folks, 6 p.m. Eastern. So mark your calendars and don't miss any episodes. If you think you know Ricardo Bozzi, join us in Conversations of Consequence. That's that special monthly show I do where I feature the most important voices of our times. Ricardo and I sat down for over 2 hours and had a wonderful conversation of consequence, and you'll gain much greater insights into the life, times, and mind of retired Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Bozzi. So you'll want to go find that at jmcbroadcasting.com and on the Rumble channel. Incredible journey, incredible episode. So today we're going to get into some of the events that have just been recently going on. So having said that, before we get into some of the headlines of the past week or so, let's dive into the overall psyop of this war, the operation as it may help those coming aboard. So Ricardo, I kind of want to take an approach to the target audience, if you will, as well as those already aboard who tend to waffle and get unearthed and begin buying into the optics of the events versus the truth behind the events. So allow me, Ricardo, to frame this, then have your response. So here I am setting up the framework for this first question. Nothing is as it seems. It had to be this way, and the war is not over yet. Cleanup of the lower tier of the cabal while simultaneously breaking down the matrix by forcing people to talk about the subjects that actually matter are the hardest parts of this operation, which is why the fog of war seems to be thickening with all the events that are occurring. So the White Hats are forcing the spotlight to exactly where it needs to be in order to manipulate the minds of the, quote, target audience on both the left and the right. It's vital to recognize that the false political paradigm of Democrat versus Republican is eroding in the process. As all of this continues to play out, people are focusing less on partisan politics and more on the core issues that have both weaponized the system against the people and prevented our elected officials from actually representing us, not special interests. That's what unity looks like, folks, even if it has the appearance of division. Don't worry about Trump playing golf with Lindsey Graham or disavowing Marjorie Taylor Greene or the optics of his pro-Israel administration and Mamdani in the White House. Rather, ask yourself, if Trump were really on the side of the Zionists and the neocons, if he were truly aligned with the deep state, would we really be having an Israel issue and debate? Please delve into the art of war to help those who just can't see the forest for the trees. All right, so having said that, Ricardo, would you want to weigh in, please, on the 40,000-foot view, directing primarily the target audience of those that waffle within our movement at every event that happens? I've mentioned a few. We had Marjorie Taylor Greene. We've got his perceived stance on Israel. We've got Mamdani issue and many other things going on. How can you help people understand the true nature of the psychological operations in this war to assist them in getting further grounded? Because there's more of this to come.
Yeah, the first thing I'd like to say is what everyone should realize is that people like John, myself, and others who have been deeply embedded in this process for many, many, many years, we are satisfied with how this is rolling. Not because we're delusional. Neither of us is prone to that sort of thing. You don't get to be a special ops colonel if you're prone to delusion. It's hard facts, and that's what we and people like me around the world have been diving into quite deeply. So just to set the scene, there's a huge safety net sitting underneath you. For all the people that are just coming into this journey, there is a large safety net, and we're more than happy. Now, having said that, excuse me, I want you to imagine on a personal level, on a deeply personal level, a major betrayal, like a spouse or a business partner. You've worked together, you've trusted each other, you like each other, you know each other. And then you find out you've been betrayed. Now, most of us have been on either side of that event in our lives. Most of us on both sides. We've been betrayed and we have betrayed. But bring it down to a deeply personal level. It hurts. It deeply wounds. It actually wounds the psychology of the individual. It's the basis of post-traumatic stress, whether it's post-traumatic stress as experienced by, say, soldiers, or post-traumatic stress as experienced by a moral wound. It's identical. The process is identical. The physiological impact on the brain is identical. It's not a matter of, toughen up, princess, and get on with it. No. It doesn't work that way. Now, that moral wound on a personal level, once you've been betrayed by a spouse or a business partner or some close friend, intimate, someone for whom you would give everything, that wound it persists, and it takes a long time to heal. That betrayal, the expectation of something that was promised was never going to be delivered. Now, on a personal level, that's incredibly, excruciatingly painful. Now, imagine the entire world in that same situation simultaneously, and that's where we are. We have been betrayed, we have been lied to, we have been deceived. Real sacrifices have been made by countless men and women and children around the planet for centuries, fighting and dying and believing in something that we have recently, and by recently I mean the last few decades, began to understand was a lie. Everything that we thought was real, everything that we thought was important, everything that we were taught to believe in is a lie. Now, not the idea of it. I'm not talking about the nature of the creator. I'm talking about life on Earth. And so when you have an entire population of a planet, 7 billion people, all about to be told that, well, you know what? Judaism isn't what it was cracked up to be. Neither is Hinduism. Neither is Christianity. Neither is Buddhism. The political processes, the right, the left, the center, the fascists, the communists, the socialists, your sexuality, male, female, children, the people you believe, the people you invested in, and find out it's been one long deception, a great lie. We've been used as cattle and sheep, cattle to be milked, sheep to be shorn, and then disposed of when we are no longer useful. Slaves to earn on behalf of those that would control us. Now, these are concepts that are just beyond the ken. You've got
Join ICE with bonuses up to $50,000 and generous benefits. Join.ice.gov.
to be crazy to believe that this is true. And yet the evidence over many, many, many decades has shown us exactly that. The evidence is there if you wish to see it. We've been subject to the worst global deception imaginable. Now imagine again that pain on an individual level multiplied by 7 billion and trying to move an entire planet from where it thought it was to where it actually needs to be. Now, this isn't going to take place, and nobody ever thought it would. This is not going to happen in a few weeks, days, months, or even years. This is decades in the movement. The analogy I like to use is this. When the Hebrews were released from slavery from Egypt, they wandered the desert, supposedly, for 40 years. Now, is that true? I don't know, and I don't much care. It doesn't matter. But what it does demonstrate is, why did they have to take so long to get to the promised land? Because it was important that those that understood and lived under slavery never wanted to go back. They had no experience of it, and they would never allow themselves to be submitted to that again. So the process of healing the planet, and we are talking a planetary healing in a real sense, this is going to take decades and decades. And so what the good people who have identified what was wrong and then chose to act to redress that wrong, many, many years ago, it's called the Q, it's called white hats, it's called many, many people. But they've been working very slowly to define the scope of the problem, define the enemy, penetrate their organizations. And you can imagine the difficulty in penetrating a global conspiracy. Many good men and women had to do many bad things to establish their bona fides with the criminals so they could penetrate and then understand the scope and scale of the problem. They tried under Reagan. They thought that they could do it with Reagan, but it was too early. And he found out with an assassin's bullet to behave himself. So they had to wait and buy more time, more decades. And so this is laying out the scope of the problem. Now, we are fortunately, you are fortunately, in the final phase of this part of the operation. As I said, the operation will continue for decades to come. But this final phase where it ceases to be a clandestine and covert war, it's becoming more obvious. And we can see that now because what you are witnessing is the destruction of the current power structures around the world. And that means literally the power structures, say, of the Middle East. How is that being run? And you can look at what DJT is doing with Qatar and Saudi. And we can talk about that in more detail. So those structures that have actually run the planet have been dismantled. The individuals within the organizations have been removed. The corporations which have attempted this massive coup d'etat of sovereign beings on this planet have been evaporated, taken over, and then used for good. All of these levels, the financial controls have been rebuilt. But this has taken many, many, many years to do. And people don't have the capacity to handle that amount of change that quickly. Now, they're going to have to, at some point, there's going to be, as we know, it's been discussed, there's going to be a scare event. People have to be woken up to realize that it's more important to be good than it is to be wealthy. It's more important to be good than it is to be happy. It's more important to be good than it is to be wealthy. It's more important to be moral. We as a people have lost that. Not because we're inherently immoral. We're not. As a species, we would have evaporated if we weren't naturally moral, if we didn't have a predisposition for moral behavior. But evil's been imposed upon us so profoundly that we began to think that we were evil, but we're not. And so we've got this major healing to occur on a global level. It's taken many, many decades to get here. Most of the work is done. It has been subterranean, both metaphorical and physical. It's been clandestine and covert, as I said, and now it's coming above the surface. And what we're going to be seeing is the dismantling of this deception, But it won't be Jews telling Christians they're wrong or Christians telling Jews they're wrong. And this is part of what you need to be watching very carefully. You're going to see communists telling communists they're wrong. You're going to see Jews telling Jews they're wrong. You're going to see Christians telling Christians they're wrong. You're going to be telling capitalists that capitalism is wrong. Those who have promoted the lie have to be the ones that dismantle the lie. You're going to see the same media heads that lied to you for decades now telling you exactly the opposite story. Case in point, Bill Gates all of a sudden saying, well, guess what? Global warming is not a big deal, so don't worry about it too much, which is just remarkable. That's what you're going to be looking for. When you start to see that, you'll know that the truth is coming out, and it's coming out in a way that is as palatable as possible, and certainly at a rate which is digestible by the people. So there you go. That's, I guess, painting a big picture of where we were, where we are, and how we have to get to where we have to be.
So well said, so well stated, and so highly accurate, and I believe will be very helpful for many people that are dealing with the difficulties of the exposure, as you stated, dismantling the deception. Well, a lot of fallout comes out from that dismantling, and it's difficult for some to understand and make sense of that madness. I think they need to re-listen to what you've just stated. It was so well put. So now we're going to get into some of the issues that we deal with. And we can go split screen to my producer, remove our great commander-in-chief. He's commanding too much attention on the camera. There we go. Thank you. Anyway, I want to talk about the 21st century Nuremberg trials. And those listening now, the target audience or those fully awake or at any degree you're aware of things, you'll start to see, if you incorporate into your knowingness, into your system, what Ricardo just covered, you're going to start to connect some dots as we go through some of the news events of the week. So let's talk about Nuremberg 2.0, federal investigation into Anthony Fauci. DNI Tulsi Gabbard confirms Anthony Fauci is under federal investigation. This is official from the DNI, folks, for perjury and secretly funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan. The full classified timeline is now out. Lies, censorship, money trails, and crimes that triggered the nightmare. Fauci is at the center of this investigation, no surprise to many of us. How do you see this playing out, Ricardo? Nuremberg 2.0 is real. I have another panel show called Eyes on Gitmo with retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired Lieutenant Colonel Matt Meck, with Juano Savin and other military and intelligence folks that join us, and they concur Nuremberg 2 is going to be convened. With the layout that I just put out there against Fauci and the rest, how do you see a Nuremberg 2 playing out? And Putin, just a sidebar, wants his hands on Fauci as well. Everybody wants to prosecute these people, the international courts, Putin over there in Russia, and certainly us in Gitmo or Gitmo type sites that we have. Nuremberg 2.0, any feedback or comments on what's about to shake the rafters of this universe?
Absolutely. And this is a good point. Let me just talk about Nuremberg 1.0 to put Nuremberg 2.0 into context. Nuremberg trials after World War II prosecuted the leadership of the Nazi organization for crimes against humanity. And this was a world first. And many people criticized it because they thought this is the victors imposing a limited penalty over those that lost the war. And to an extent, they were right, because Nuremberg 1.0 was a tremendous step forward for humanity in holding the planet to some sort of moral standard. Up to that point, it was very little. Trouble is with 1.0, they focused on.
I've been taking Digesticare for 3.5 years. It's a wonderful product. It has greatly improved my digestive system and my overall health. I am so pleased with this product. It has done so much and changed my life. I recommend this product to anybody with any kind of digestive or autoimmune disorders.
I'm Dr. Sergey Sorin, Medical Director of the Shili Sorin Wellness Institute. I'm about to give you the most valuable...
On the leadership. They focused on the leadership. Nuremberg 2.0, everybody goes down. That's point number one. Nuremberg 1.0, the leadership was charged, found guilty, hung, or imprisoned. And in fact, some of them ended up as leaders of the European community. Nazi officers led Europe after a period that people forgot what was going on. Nuremberg 2.0 won't be like that. So point one, 2.0 is going to include not just the leaders, but everybody. Everybody's going down. RICO is the mechanism by which it's done. It will be done by law and order, and you're going to hear a lot of this, law and order. Everything must be done according to a set of law and order. And that's mandatory. Otherwise, it just sounds like somebody with a bigger gun won. Well, that's not the case. So point one, it's not just the leadership going down, everyone goes down. Point number two, those that profited and hid in the background, like Ford Motor Company, who provided engines to both the Americans and the Germans. Coca-Cola, who provided drinks for the Americans and the Germans. In fact, they made a transparent Coca-Cola because they didn't want Goering be seen to be drinking the original Coke, so they made a transparent one for Goering. Adolf Hitler had a picture of Henry Ford in his office. Henry Ford was granted the highest Nazi civilian award. Fuel companies, Standard Oil provided special agents to add to aviation fuel to prevent knocking for high-performance aircraft at altitude. You know, without that contribution, the Luftwaffe would have failed miserably. So you can see now, it's not just the leadership, but the corporations, the amoral corporations that assisted and profited off the deaths of GIs on the beaches of Normandy and in the African desert and in the skies over Europe. They are going down in Nuremberg 2.0. So now again, so before it was just the leadership, everyone's going down, and the corporations that profited, they are going down. So you can see there is a parallel here. A standard is being held according to a set of rules, but now everyone goes down, and they're going down lawfully and legally. And so 1.0 and 2.0 Nuremberg. Third difference, Nuremberg trials were done and recorded, and everybody got to see it. In fact, there's an excellent movie involving the Nuremberg trials in which an impassioned plea by a German defense counsel points out the criminals in the US business community were allowed to go free. But the third point is this: instead of having a series of trials that people could watch and record, most of these trials have already taken place. There won't be one single Nuremberg 2.0 event. These events have already taken place over many, many years, as we have reported over many years. The military tribunals under Rear Admiral Crandall initially, and then spread out after that, have been heard. The criminals have been charged, tried, found guilty, and executed. And the evidence of this will be rolled out in time, progressively, in order to let the people know that justice has been served. It's just not mindless retribution. Justice has been served, so it'll be released over time. The fourth difference, it'll be the complicit actions of non-military, non-warlike assets like Hollywood, like the music industry, like the sporting industry, the general entertainment industry, all of these people who have been used to brainwash, persuade us, provide social proof of depraved activities to say it's okay to do it, they will also go down too. So there's another level again. And that's why this whole process is going to be so difficult for the world, because they'll be saying, but what about my favorite cricketer from Australia? Well, no, he was actually a pedophile and he didn't fall off a balcony. He was put down, for example. What about my favorite NFL star? What about my favorite NBA star? and they're going to find out that everybody and everything they believed, looked up to, admired, were inspired by, they're going to go down too. So that's why, again, this moral wound, it will be so deep and so painful, it's got to be managed in a very measured way, lest the population of the planet go into collective psychotic shock, which they will. So it's going to be done. There is pain to come, without doubt, but it has to be done in a measured way so the people can make this transition. And it's up to people like John, good men like John, and his ilk to keep getting the word out there so people can progressively begin to understand what is coming. So the shock is reduced, the pain will be real, but the shock is reduced, and we can take as many people with us as we can.
Thank you, Ricardo. Again, so well said. And so we can see, folks, the parallels and the differences in Nuremberg 1.0 to Nuremberg 2.0. And at least from the report, the brief report that I read concerning the work of DNI Tulsi Gabbard, it sounds like this Nuremberg 2.0 will be focused upon basically the biological weapon, the global pandemic scam, which was probably the biggest lie and scar on humanity, affecting 7 billion people directly or indirectly, with more, unfortunately, health issues and deaths to come as a result of those that took the jab and the boosters. Would you think, and by the way, you mentioned the Nuremberg movie. It's my understanding that Russell Crowe is a star in a just released movie like weeks ago, if that maybe even sooner, more recent, called Nuremberg, I believe. So I also wouldn't consider it a coincidence or an accident that new Nuremberg movie's coming out with Russell Crowe at this very point where the DNI is releasing this information. My question, Ricardo, is this. Obviously, Fauci's front and center. That's been named by the DNI, and that's obvious. Would we see who could we speculate? And that's the key word. Who could we speculate that will also be in the Nuremberg hot seat? Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab? Would it be members of the NIH, the World Health Organization, CDC? Would it be people from those organizations? Would you care to speculate on who else would be sitting in the Nuremberg trials, briefly defending themselves before they face their executioner?
Yeah, it will be those at the highest level who were involved in activities that directly affected the population. So it's not some abstract intellectual crime that was committed by somebody by someone they don't know and something that didn't affect them. It's got to be up front, but far enough away so it doesn't become personal. Now, attempting to kill 6.5 billion people is pretty personal. And there are a lot of people out there with children with myocarditis and pericarditis and a range of other health issues. So that's going to be the first level. It'll be big names, and Gates is definitely would be, if I was sitting at the table prioritizing it, Gates is going to be a big one. They have to come down first, and then progressively, the list will include everybody. As I said, entertainment, sports, you name it, finance, progressively working their way down to show everybody the depth, scale, and scope of the problem. And here's what's going to be hard. Here's what the white hats have to achieve. They have to achieve an understanding within the population that every aspect of life, everything, ladies and gentlemen, has been controlled by evil forces for the longest time. There is not one aspect of life. The only aspect of life that you had any control over was yourself, and that's it. Whether it's the polity, the judiciary, the constabulary, the military, media, academia, big business, big unions, every church, synagogue, mosque, lodge, and temple have been controlled by the same nefarious forces. Now, this is going to be a hard one, but all of those aspects have to be revealed. It'll be done progressively at a speed and a rate that the people can tolerate. So that I think there might be some
I was hoping it'd start back on its own. May have to restart it. Okay. Good stuff. How far in were we? It was a pretty amazing episode.
This is how to tell if your olive oil is fake.
The real reason you're stiff after sitting.
You can live a very long time without getting old.
Actions of non-military, non-warlike assets like Hollywood, like the music industry, like the sporting industry, the general entertainment industry, all of these people who have been used to brainwash, persuade us, provide social proof of depraved activities to say it's okay to do it, they will also go down too. So there's another level again. And that's why this whole process is going to be so difficult for the world, because they'll be saying, but what about my favorite cricketer from Australia? Well, no, he was actually a pedophile and he didn't fall off a balcony. He was put down, for example. What about my favorite NFL star? What about my favorite NBA star? And they're going to find out that everybody and everything they believed, looked up to, admired, were inspired by, they're going to go down too. So that's why, again, this moral wound, it will be so deep and so painful, it's got to be managed in a very measured way, lest the population of the planet go into collective psychotic shock, which they will. So it's going to be done. There is pain to come, without doubt, but it has to be done in a measured way so the people can make this transition. And it's up to people like John, good men like John, and his ilk to keep getting the word out there so people can progressively begin to understand what is coming. So the shock is reduced, the pain will be real, but the shock is reduced and we can take as many people with us as we can.
Thank you, Ricardo. Again, so well said. And so we can see, folks, the parallels and the differences in Nuremberg 1.0 to Nuremberg 2.0. And at least from the report, the brief report that I read concerning the work of DNI Tulsi Gabbard, it sounds like this Nuremberg 2.0 will be focused upon basically the biological weapon, the global pandemic scam, which was probably the biggest lie and scar on humanity, affecting 7 billion people directly or indirectly, with more, unfortunately, health issues and deaths to come as a result of those that took the jab and the boosters. Would you think, and by the way, you mentioned the Nuremberg movie, it's my understanding that Russell Crowe is a star in a just released movie like weeks ago, if that maybe even sooner, more recent, called Nuremberg, I believe. So I also wouldn't consider it a coincidence or an accident that new Nuremberg movie's coming out with Russell Crowe at this very point where the DNI is releasing this information. My question, Ricardo, is this. Obviously, Fauci's front and center. That's been named by the DNI, and that's obvious. Would we see who could we speculate, and that's the key word, who could we speculate that will also be in the Nuremberg hot seat? Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab? Would it be members of the NIH, the World Health Organization, CDC? Would it be people from those organizations? Would you care to speculate on who else would be sitting in the Nuremberg trials, briefly defending themselves before they face their executioner?
Yeah, it will be those at the highest level who were involved in activities that directly affected the population. So it's not some abstract intellectual crime that was committed by somebody that by someone they don't know and something that didn't affect them. It's got to be upfront, but far enough away so it doesn't become personal. Now, attempting to kill 6.5 billion people is pretty personal. And there are a lot of people out there with children with myocarditis and pericarditis and a range of other health issues. So that's going to be the first level. It'll be big names, and Gates is definitely would be, if I was sitting at the table prioritizing it, Gates is going to be a big one. They have to come down first, and then progressively, the list will include everybody. As I said, entertainment, sports, you name it, finance, progressively working their way down to show everybody the depth, scale, and scope of the problem. And here's what's going to be hard. Here's what the White Hats have to achieve. They have to achieve an understanding within the population that every aspect of life, everything, ladies and gentlemen, has been controlled by evil forces for the longest time. There is not one aspect of life. The only aspect of life that you had any control over was yourself, and that's it. Whether it's the polity, the judiciary, the constabulary, the military, media, academia, big business, big unions, every church, synagogue, mosque, lodge, and temple have been controlled by the same nefarious forces. Now, this is going to be a hard one, but all of those aspects have to be revealed. It'll be done progressively at a speed and a rate that the people can tolerate. So that I think there might be getting some feedback as the White Hats roll this out, the feedback, how the people handling it. Now, there is a timeline. You can't wait forever. There is a timeline that must be met. I've mentioned this before. Some key dates: January 1st, quarter 1, 26, quarter 2, 26, and then the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in the US, which will become Independence Day for the world, and I mean that in quite a literal sense. So there is a 7-month period we're looking at where a lot's got to happen very, very quickly. But yeah, those names, the big names, the personal ones, the ones that are digestible from a distance, people have to be allowed to get angry and process that anger, but then working all its way down through every aspect of life, because they must understand, the people must understand, there hasn't been one part of life that hasn't been affected by this evil.
Thank you. You know, you raised July 4th, and you're absolutely right. It's not just the United States celebrating its independence. It's the unshackling of the chains for the rest of the world to follow, independence for all of humanity. And if you took your best guess, and from the folks I speak with, and from the seat I've been in and the research I've done, it's just my opinion. I'm curious as to what yours is. And, we've learned, all of us, certainly I have, and many other folks that are doing the sort of things I do, specific dates is a dangerous thing to mention. Even the great Juan O'Savin's been off on specific dates in the past. So we've all learned not to nail a date down unless it can be proven. But we can speculate on time frames. I feel that that's of service. And so what, in my opinion, this Nuremberg 2.0 has to happen in 2026. Would you concur?
Absolutely. The big names, and a lot has to be revealed well before the end of quarter 2, 26, because the people, again, it's like planning the invasion of Russia. You don't invade Russia in winter. Everybody loses. Two corporals tried that, didn't work all that well. Same thing here. We have coming up to January 1st, and psychologically for the people, that's a new beginning. So if something bad, really bad, has to happen before January 1st would be a good thing. And then from January 1st to quarter 1, so January, February, March, that's the time where a lot of truth is going to be coming out, a lot of pain. That's where your Nuremberg trials will be out there. Personally, a lot of exposition, this moral wound, and we should not, ladies and gentlemen, please don't discount this moral wound in people. It destroys individual lives. So you can imagine what it does to a family, to a country, to a planet. That moral wound has to be felt and then healed. And then quarter 2 next year, so you got Nuremberg 2.0 and quarter 1, and then there's a best way to describe it, a period where retribution and satisfaction is felt by the people. So the time they get to the beginning of quarter 3, which is the 4th of July, they are in a mood and have reason to celebrate. Does that make sense? So in terms of time frames, you've got that 7-month period, but you can't be torturing the people to death with the truth. And let me tell you, people don't like the truth. Nobody likes the truth because the truth hurts, but they're going to get it. And you can't give them the truth.
Do it again. By God. My recommendation would be if you want to watch the rest of it, check out John Michael Chambers on Rumble. I'm pretty sure he's here on YouTube too. And I don't know why it keeps doing that, but it's weird. I would recommend also going over to jmcbroadcasting.com. I have found that to be pretty motivating, wouldn't you say? If there's one person I really like listening to, it's Colonel Bosey. You know, if you remember the first video I played in the intro today, it was Trump talking about the Panicans and the people posting doom and gloom stuff or end of the world stuff. I was kind of surprised to see this today. I shared this on Juan's page. Very interesting, complete synopsis of the coming Earth catastrophe cycle called the Forbes map. I shared one of these a week ago. Various interpretations exist. The dates range wildly. Don't be too concerned right now, but Suspicious Observers is a good channel, and he does his work for sure. I just feel like it's a pretty weird time to start mentioning crap like this. I was surprised. Let's see what else I had, if anything. Yeah, people are really back and forth. Even this guy here got really, really dark.
Well, America, I hope you got some fight in you because we voted our way into this shit show and it looks more and more every day like we are going to have to shoot our way out. Marjorie Taylor Greene has resigned, and what she has said in her resignation letter should scare the fuck out of all of you. She said she has had death threats just piled up deep and she no longer feels safe. She says specifically, there is no plan to save America. There's no fucking 3D, 4D, 6 million D chess. None of that is going on. There is no behind the scenes bullshit going on. She says, we are all fucking cooked.
I'm surprised he fell for that one, but I don't know. Getting a little wild out there, right? But that's why I enjoy Bosey. He knows what's happening. He's level-headed, and he's always positive. He's got really positive stuff to say, so that, I think, is gonna wrap us up tonight. Unless you guys want to, I guess we could look at some of the, let's look at some of the bloodline stuff for a second. I always forget the bloodline stuff. We have to finish it. part. Ooh, I'm missing a part. Not the one I need, but just listen to a minute.
Begin transmission. This is a message from the anonymous charity also known as The Collective. Today's broadcast date is May 26, 2019. This is part 8 of our series, Bloodlines, The History of the Deep State. If you have not seen the first 7 parts, we recommend that you do so, before sitting through this transmission. We continue where we left off, the Vanderbilts. Let's take a moment to look at the Vanderbilts since no one else ever has, according to traditional search findings. They are an elite family, though not one usually categorized with these lower elites we have discussed thus far. Often overlooked, the power the subfamilies have, thus it is important to take note of what these families control as well. Everyone likes to state, it's a mystery when looking for info on the Vanderbilt line, and it clearly isn't. There is a village in Utrecht, Netherlands, where they are from, called De Bilt. Vanderbilt means of the hill. If we follow immigration records, we find Cornelius emigrated in 1650. From we can easily follow the line to Anthony Jans Zoon van Sailly were among the ancestors of the Vanderbilts, as well as the Whitneys leading down the line to Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Cornelius' great-great-grandfather Jan Zoon, again, this can be found under many different spellings, lived in Utrecht in the 1600s. Jan and names starting or including Aerts and variations of this, Aerts, etc. all stem from the same bloodline, the same tribe. The mystery of the Vanderbilts is now gone with the inclusion of the irony that coming from Pannonia, living on a hill then, Mount Hermon, and calling themselves of the hill. Well, let's take a look at the lineage for further proof. 1899 Alfred Gwyn Vanderbilt, member of Skull and Bones Order, was sent a warning not to sail on the Lusitania because the elite planned for it to be sunk, but he failed to get the telegram and sailed to his death. Whitman Vanderbilt was part of the group of Illuminati that made up the Round Table, in which the Astors and Cecils played a big role. Cornelius Vanderbilt made large sums from blackmail. Son of Cornelius Vanderbilt, he is the one who has been held to the public eye as the father of the family. His great-great-great-grandfather in 1620 was Jan Jacob Aertsen, also Aertsen, and as the line goes Vanwergen, Freer, Lou, Low, Pels, Amstel, Amstel, Amstelen, Amstel and others. From De Bilt, Utrecht, Netherlands. Jan married Anniken Gerrits, also Annette and other spellings, Hendricks from Amsterdam. Through his series of wives that seemed to die suddenly and young, he had 5 children and accumulated 14 stepchildren. On marriage records and census records we see both Jan and Anne using multiple names with many different spellings. Jan had many siblings whose names are used for numerous New Jersey and New York towns like Vanwergen. We see Jacob Aertsen Wagena, grandson of Jacob Aertsen in 1595, in Utrecht, Netherlands. Peter Aertsen was a very well-known painter of still life and was known for including biblical-based scenes in the background of his paintings. Subliminal messages and including satanic symbols in art is another trait of the bloodline. Born 1508, he was called Langpier, meaning Tall Pete. It is said he was very tall. His paintings are stunning, if one looks them up. His sons were Peter, Aert and Dirk, who all became painters as well. This was simply an uncle of the Vanderbilt line we know in today's society, but he was noteworthy. His brother, Jan Aertsen van Amstel, also took the last name Robin, was a painter. born around 1528 in Amstel, son of Aert Pietists, 1475. From Purmerend, Noord-Holland, Nederland. If we follow this lineage back, it's easy to find his great-great-great-great grandson Johannes Arnold Clessen van Amstel in 1611, also known as Jan Aerts. Fun to see the pieces fall into place, isn't it? We can trace the Van Amstels through painters and lords back to 1075. Wolfje van Amstel, scout, meaning sheriff, Van Amstel and aka Wolfje, Wolfga, Wolfgerus, Wolfegerus van Amstel, Van Amstel, was the bailiff. The Plagespricht van Amstel was based on the history of his descendant. Wolfje's grandfather was Egbert I van Amstel, 1048. The line can be traced back even further to Lord Radboud, Radbold, Redbad, van Egmond in about 876. Further we go, we see Frisian King Radboud aka Radbod, Radbold, Ratboldo, Ratbodus, Ratboldas, Redbad, Rotbald, de Fries. Koning van Friesland, of Utrecht. He helped join the Rhine and Franks under the rule of the Merovingian dynasty once again in 690. Saint Radboud, Bishop of Utrecht, is descended from him and also a Satanist. King Redbad's great-great-grandfather is Ordulf de Fries, born in 560. Let's continue. William Andrews Clark, aka Jesse James, America's most famous outlaw, faked his own death in 1882, and lived to be 107 years old and had 71 aliases. He became a U.S. Senator in Montana, had the county of Clark County, which contains Las Vegas, named after him, and founded the city of Clarkdale, Arizona. He also claimed that John Wilkes Booth did not die in the barn but that he poisoned him in 1903. Cover organizations sprang up all over to hide the elite. In 1901, the Astors contributed to the creation of the Pilgrim Society, which was the cover organization for Umar and Brit, sixth-degree princes of the Illuminati. Ava Alice Muriel Astor, uncultist, born in 1902, was beautiful, very serious, strong-willed and dominating. She was into Egyptian magic and believed she was the reincarnation of an Egyptian princess and a disciple of Akhenaten. If we went around thinking we were an Egyptian princess, someone would shoot us and put us out of the misery. Why are they any different? Alice Astor may have been one of the first people to enter King Tut's tomb, where she got herself a necklace. Aldous Huxley wrote Brave New World as a plan or blueprint for the next steps. Aldous Huxley and Alice did a great deal together, with their occult belief and financial power unchecked, as the Astors are above the law. 1904, Aleister Crowley claimed that, in Cairo at 12 noon exactly and for the following 2 days at the exact same time, he heard a voice in his ear, dictating words that he transcribed. The voice itself claimed to be Awaz, the minister of Hor-Patrat, Horus, the god of force and fire, child of Isis and Osiris, and self-appointed conquering lord of the new eon. Today we see the Vanderbilt line in the politics, Hollywood scene. Gloria Vanderbilt, born 1924, was married to several men including Pasquale Patidisica, who was an American agent and movie producer, as well as a mobster working for Lucky Luciano, as well as Wyatt Emery Cooper. Their son is Anderson Cooper, who has been an MK Ultra Hollywood star since birth. Carter Vanderbilt Cooper supposedly committed suicide at age 23 by jumping from the family's 14th floor apartment. Gloria Vanderbilt was the only child of railroad heir Reginald Claypool Vanderbilt and has been involved in fashion, acting, and art. In the 1980s she accused her lawyer of fraud. He was dead by the end of the trial. Gloria is, as one would expect, deeply involved with the White House and is included in the ritual child sex parties. One of the children she has raped at the White House during these sex parties, along with Barbara Bush and Barry Obama, is survivor Randall Turner. We hope these few details on this subfamily will help you see them better for what they really are. Let's move on and talk about the Bundys for a minute. We typically hear much about the Bundy family regarding the serial killer Ted Bundy, TV shows and now the recent Patriot movement in America. The family is very public and easy to find. The controlled opposition Patriot movement started a few years ago by the CIA and the Bundy family, helping to create the civil war taking place in the USA currently. As we keep telling you, the elite always play both sides. The Bundys of today are in the spotlight, so we will not linger on them. To move on, other names they have used and merged with are Frazier, Blackman, Hitchcock, McGeorge, Bond, Bunt, Bronte, Bean, McBean, McVeigh, Bain, and many others. Let's take a look from Harvey Hollister Bundy. Born in 1888, he became a high member of Skull and Bones, naturally. He was Special Assistant to Secretary of War Stimson, also Skull and Bones, law clerk for Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes and intricately involved in the Manhattan Project as he worked for the Pentagon and many other high offices at military bases like Panama and Banks. He was chairman of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and many other organizations. He married Harvard President Abbott Lawrence Lowell's niece Catherine Lawrence Putnam from the very prominent, elite, wealthy Putnam bloodline scene in Boston. They had William Bill Putnam Bundy and McGeorge. Under President Hoover, while he worked for the Secretary of War, he also became special legal assistant to the Secretary of Treasury. Nice little fitty? He died in 1963. If you haven't figured it out by now, top colleges and top careers are all a false front to keep you thinking and believing that they are better than you. They keep themselves separated from humanity and fool us into believing they are separated because they are smarter than we are and more valuable than we are. The colleges are where they get involved deeper into the clubs such as Skull and Bones, Bohemian Club, the Round Table, and the like. The gig the elites run is perfect for the ignorant, who pay them to mind control their children, and push their children to accept it. After all, Ivy League must be the best because it costs so much. Slaves promoting slavery. Astonishing. Once you really see that governments and corporations and universities and the like are simply illusions, a false facade for the elite to hide behind, you will see how powerful you really are. William Bundy became an intelligence expert and analyst, as well as attorney for the CIA. He was intimate with the planning of the Vietnam War and was foreign affairs advisor for Kennedy and Johnson. After he retired, he became a historian of foreign affairs and taught at MIT and Princeton until he died in 2000. He married Mary Akeson and they had Michael, Christopher, and Carol. His little brother McGeorge, Mac, became the national security advisor to Kennedy and Johnson. Married to Mary B. Lothrop, they had Stephen, Andrew, William, and James. He was president of the Ford Foundation and was one of the chief designers for the Vietnam War. He was professor of Harvard, member of CFR along with Dwight Eisenhower, Allen Dulles, Richard M. Bisler Jr., and George Kennan, and worked on the Marshall Plan, involved in the Bay of Pigs invasion and Cuban Missile Crisis. His Skull and Bones nickname is Odin. Also, he was the chairman for the 303 Committee. His little brother, McGeorge Bundy, went to Yale where he was initiated into the Skull and Bones. McGeorge then went to Harvard. After this, McGeorge joined the Army as a private at 23 years old. In a year was promoted to captain and placed on staff to plan the logistics and other details of the invasion of Sicily and the Normandy invasion. Do you think the same speed would apply to you, if you could join any of their clubs? How can a newbie without experience have the experience to know how much supplies, etc. are needed for a certain operation? Bear in mind that these calculations are for battles in which the wrong combination of supplies could mean death or defeat for a unit. Of course, what is listed in this document is only a very short outline for you to use to find out more. The details are sparse as we cannot put everything into one document. We leave many discoveries open for you to find and expand your own knowledge. We merely give you the tools and light the path. You must do the walking. Because of certain events, McGeorge Bundy was included in Nixon's enemies list and died of a heart attack in 1996. McGeorge was also MJ-12 and both brothers, besides being lead members of CFR, Skull and Bones and other groups, were Bilderbergers. So, Harvey Hollister's grandfather, Solomon Jr., was a district attorney and a congressman. Born in Oxford, New York on May 22, 1823, he married Roxana Hitchcock and had Elizabeth Roxanne Bundy. Then he married Elizabeth Ann McGeorge and had son McGeorge, Harvey's dad, and Nathan A. Like most of the top families, their graves are marked in the Riverview Cemetery with a looming obelisk. Elizabeth McGeorge's father was famous Reverend Horatio T. McGeorge. Solomon Bundy Jr.'s grandfather William was the unification of the Smith and Bundy bloodlines in 1748. We follow the Bundys back to John Bundy, born 1617 in England. He came to New Hampshire, US and settled in Massachusetts. He was married to Martha Chandler and then Ruth Bundy. His offspring were Samuel, Mary, James I and II, Martha, Patience, and Sarah. Now let's look at the British Bundys. John Bundy's dad, also John, was born 1590 in Nottinghamshire, England. He was also known as John Bean. John Bundy Bean was married to M. Edwards Palmer. The name is still prominent in the family, for example the FMC Corporation if we go back, tracing the Beans with all of their spellings through Nottinghamshire, York, Notts, all the way back to 1210 where we see the Bean who jumped the border. He became a magistrate in Aberdeen, Scotland. Now following the Bundy, Bean, line back in Scotland, the first reported Bean came from the McBeans, also spelled McBean, which came from the McBain family in Aberdeenshire. The McBain's symbol is a red hand on a white shield. Notice how many families in the lower elites have the colors red and white for their crests. Remember the color orders and how they relate to status of the families. These were the sod bearers for the Chatan clan's chief. The name means son of the fair lad. Sod translates into council, roughly meaning a group. As we see through the line so far, lawyers, advisors, they seem to be the chosen council still. If we look at this word just a bit closer, the first recorded name Sodi, or Bizadia means council of Yah. It's interesting to learn the definitions of the names, since that's the reason for the names in the first place. The name Bean in Old Gaelic means hill or peak. The Old Bundy, Bean, clan is actually quite important to our history in this document. The Chatan clan was called the Chatan Confederation and was different from every other Scottish clan. The clan had 12 separate clans within it who each had their own chief. They were recognized under Scottish law, but were united under one main chief of the Confederation for mutual solidarity. These clans can be easily traced. The 12 clans in the Confederation are McBean aka McPherson, Farquharson, McThomas, Shure, Macintosh and McPhail were related by blood. The other clans not related but included were the Davidson, McLean, McQueen, McIntyre, McGillivray, McAndrew. Domnallban aka Donald McBan, Don Alban, Donald the Fair, was king of the Scots in 1093. Donald III was represented in the Don Alban character in Shakespeare's Macbeth. The line can then be easily traced back to Synod MacAlpin aka Kenneth MacAlpin, king of the Picts, the first king of the Scots in 841. Kenneth's father Alpin, son of Urke, was killed in Galloway about 836 AD, after he had entirely destroyed and devastated the land, so the story goes. Then the kingdom of the Scots was transferred to the kingdom of the Picts. From here we will leave you to discover the remaining few centuries. It is easy to follow the lines up to the recent past of the Bundys. In keeping with the advisory role of the family, Jonas Mills Bundy was key advisor to Presidents Grant, Garfield and Chester A. Arthur. In 1957 a wing or branch of the Illuminati under Onassis, A leading mafia family kidnapped the self-created billionaire and genius, Howard Hughes, and practiced what is named Hegelian philosophy. A thesis is set up, antithesis set up, then out of the conflict of the two comes the synthesis. This is how the elite operate today. Create a problem. Get the reaction. Provide the solution. If an Illuminati demand isn't met, then the business would be burned or the businessman hurt. The mafia would introduce themselves as protectors for the businessman from the extortionists. Finally, when the businessman begins paying the mafia for protection, that completes the cycle. The Illuminati have always been doing this tactic. We saw the obvious use of it in France when the trains were bombed by US agents, after the French decided not to join the US against ISIS. The day after the bombing they made a point to announce to the world, loudly, that they were against ISIS and joined the war. Same happened with Russia's plane being shot down by US, and the list is truly endless. Eric Bundy was put in charge of Howard Hughes' real name, L. Wayne Rector. Hughes was kept in near isolation by the families, who used double Brooks Randall for appearances, because he would not comply with the family's wishes to buy him out. He was a genius, filled with new ideas but unwilling to sell them. Similar to Tesla in some ways. He knew, like those who have been murdered before him and since, that ideas are priceless and knowledge is power. This is what the elite fear most. Ideas and knowledge. This is what we fight for. Knowledge should be free. The public was told Hughes died in 1971. Eric Bundy was his overseer. Robert Mahay and Lou Russell were also in charge of Hughes, and the three worked together in the assassination of Kennedy. Hughes was kidnapped, tortured, starved and drugged for many months until he was thrown out of a plane into the ocean by his captors. That is how the world really works. You will never be told in the news what is truly going on. It is only there to keep you distracted from the elite. One of the most famous criminals was a serial killer named Ted Theodore R. Bundy. It is not publicly known why he killed so many innocent victims, though it is easy to see if one understands the elite mind. Ted Bundy told his girlfriend Elizabeth Kendall that the force caused him to kill. Bundy's confession to her was given after his final arrest in Florida. Elizabeth wrote down his confession as he gave it to her over the phone. Ted said, "I don't have a split personality. I don't have blackouts. I remember everything I've done. Like Lake Sammamish. We went out to Farrell's for ice cream after eating hamburgers. It wasn't like I had forgotten or couldn't remember, but it was just over ... gone ... The force wasn't pushing me anymore. I don't understand it. The force would just consume me." The force is the very term that high-level Satanists use to describe the power that they believe in, which they believe can be used for either good or evil. The movies Star Wars surprisingly used the Illuminati's term the Force as part of the instilling of acceptance by planting the concept into the public's thinking and goals, so that the conspiracy becomes an open conspiracy with the general public promoting the drive toward witchcraft as the world religion and its one world government. Now, continuing in 1906, the Panama Canal is constructed by de Lesseps, according to St. Simon's New World Order plans. The Panama Canal was owned and operated by the United States government, until treaties, ratified 1977-78, provided for its operation by a Panama Canal Commission until December 31, 1999. As written, the year 2000, Panama assumed full responsibility for its management, operation and maintenance. 1909 Harvey Hollister Bundy Sr. became a lawyer, like his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. Harvey was in Skull and Bones and had 5 children, 3 who were also in the Skull and Bones order. Morny D. Collins was state superintendent of schools in Georgia. He went to Bob Jones College sometime after 1938, was a Freemason, a Grand Master of the Georgia Grand Lodge of Oddfellows, associate editor of the Georgia Oddfellows News, and editor of Atlanta's Masonic Magazine. He was in Eastern Star, and other affiliated Masonic groups. He lived at the Capitol building in Georgia and was a pastor of Friendship Baptist Church for his lifetime. Edward S. Van Den, 1872 to 1955, was a prominent surgeon. Born in Syracuse, New York, he went to Princeton University and got his MD at Syracuse University. During World War I he was in the U.S. Army Medical Corps in France, as a major then as a lieutenant colonel. Van Den attended the Unitarian Church, which is deeply associated with Wicca. He also associated with the Liberal Presbyterians, another oxymoron. These word plays do well to deceive and redefine words. 1910 Coleman DuPont went in business with President Taft's brother Charles P. Taft of Skull and Bones to build McAlpin Hotel in New York City. Horace Taft was also member of the Order of Skull and Bones. The Taft family helped start the Skull and Bones Order. Coleman bought New York Equitable Life Assurance Society, which was America's largest insurance company. Coleman belonged to the Rittenhouse in Philadelphia and was the director of Union National Bank, the president of Central Coal and Iron Company, and much more. We see the Round Table groups appear during 1910, reconfiguring themselves from the other branches of Illuminati subgroups. Abe Bailey and the Astors were the main supporters of the Round Table groups. During World War I, the DuPonts made a mint. Their company had $9 million surplus in its treasury, and DuPont absorbed General Motors. The DuPonts also went into the chemical business. The American government had seized the German Die Trust, and the DuPonts were given their patents. The DuPonts began to build a great chemical empire of synthetics, shatterproof glass, paints, rayon, nylon, dyes, photographic film, rubber, chemicals, drugs, etc. Alfred Victor DuPont, Alfred I's Episcopalian son, served only as a private in the Marines during World War I. But in World War II as a consultant to the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 1943 to 1945. The families created the Round Table groups. The Astors were the part of the financial backers behind the Round Table groups, along with Abe Bailey. Rhodes and Milner were key in the Society of the Elect, a super-secret top circle of Illuminati. 1913 W. Averell Harriman was initiated into Skull and Bones. He helped finance Hitler to power. Hitler's war machine was IG Farben, which was controlled by the Rothschilds through the Warburgs. Paul Warburg created the privately owned Central Bank of America, the Federal Reserve, in 1913, and was on the board of American IG. Hitler's IG Farben, which ran the camp at Auschwitz, was a division of Standard Oil, officially owned by the Rockefellers. The Rothschilds finally saw their work pay off in the United States with the creation of the Federal Reserve System, solidifying their ultimate control of the nation. The Watchtower Society started transferring all of the doctrines about 1874 to 1914. They explained that Christ's kingdom had been set up invisibly in 1914, and that although secular governments were still in place, their rule was no longer valid. Based on the Society's writings, Jehovah's Witnesses looked forward to momentous events in the year 1918. It didn't happen ... again. You have to give them credit, they really know how to persevere. By 1915, John Todd, who was married to Alice, is noted as one of the most important men in the East. He was appointed Massachusetts Director of Public Health and Welfare, a job where he could write checks and approve construction and medical contracts, offer political positions on high-paying state committees, most as repayment for favors, and pass funding along to hand-picked organizations and charities. His daughter was Thelma Todd, known as Hot Toddy, an extremely sexy movie actress. Around 1920, Thelma Todd was intimately involved with the mob, as she was the lover of Lucky Luciano, nicknamed Charlie Lucifer, who was the most feared and hated of the underworld bosses. Luciano liked Toddy as her restaurant created a legitimate front to his narcotics dealings with the Bronfmans, outwardly Jewish, covertly Satanist family. And in this time, Charles Taze Russell's Jehovah's Witnesses prediction for Armageddon fails. Again. In 1917, United States enters World War I and Rockefellers make $200 million. Over 38 million people died in World War I. The Rockefellers alone made about $5.27 per death. For every person who died, Rockefellers got paid. That is how the elite work. Nothing is done for you, only their profit. The Rockefeller banks had the private fortune of the Romanov family, separate from the Russian government's fortune. This consisted of $400 million in gold, at the then price of $20 per ounce. Declaring their Tsar and his family falsely dead enabled the Rockefeller bankers to spread out their empire using the fraudulent bankers' use of fractional reserves. Through secret accounts, the Rockefellers rolled over these funds, to their benefit, in violation of laws providing that bank accounts revert to the state government if not claimed in 7 years. After the Romanov child whose blood was pure was taken and used to further the bloodline. It is unknown if any of them were killed as of now. The evidence is sealed and has not been allowed to be looked at. Lord Balfour was an elite in the Round Table. Alfred Milner was the Round Table's official leader after the death of Cecil Rhodes, and the Round Table was funded by Lord Lionel Walter Rothschild. These were the three people involved in the Balfour Declaration of the death of the Tsar in 1917. The Round Table Society controls the network of the Bilderberg Group, Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, Trilateral Commission and the Royal Institute of International Affairs. The Rothschilds accomplished their other goal to destroy Christian Russia by creating the Bolshevik Revolution. Rothschild-inspired and Rockefeller-muscled as usual. History books declare that Russian Tsar Nicholas II and his family, following the Russian Revolution, were assassinated by the Bolsheviks, July 1918, in a basement of a house in Ekaterinburg, Siberia. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, arranged by Lenin, in March 1918, ended the war with Germany, enabling the Germans to devote their efforts to the Western Front against US, France, and Great Britain. The treaty had a secret codicil, arranged by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds who financed Lenin, providing for the safe passage of the Tsar and his family in exile, like they have with their favorite Nazis. According to Thalamic legend, in 1918 Aleister Crowley came into contact with an interdimensional entity named Lam, what we now call Alien Grey. The Amalantra working is said to allow Lam and other alien greys a passageway onto the Earth plane. Furthermore, this portal may have been further enlarged by Parsons and Hubbard in 1946 with the commencement of the Babylon working. From 1918 to 1963 Jean Cocteau was Grand Master of the pre-Eurydice prohibition, the legal prevention of the manufacture, sale, or transportation of alcoholic beverages, except for medicinal purposes, was attempted on a national scale. This was an attempt to ratify the 18th Amendment of the Constitution and lasted until 1933. The Versailles Peace Conference meetings decided how the world would be changed as a result of the war these same people had created, just like the UN and Bilderberg today. They decided to impose impossible reparations payments on Germany, ensuring the economic collapse and thus create the very circumstances that brought the Rothschild, Hitler, to power. It was while in Paris, a meeting took place, including the Round Table members, at the Hotel Majestic, which planned and began the process of creating the Bilderberg CFRE Trilateral Commission network. They also decided at Versailles that they now all supported the creation of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. During the 1920s, assassination of estimated 400 German public figures began. USA entry into League of Nations was blocked in Senate. The development of modern advertising techniques emphasize manipulation, rather than information. Ramsay MacDonald, British Prime Minister, was in favor of working with Communist Russia, a member of the Fabian Society, and was close to Anne Besant and Clark, a disciple of Illuminatus Mazzini. On a side note, Sir John A. Macdonald was the first Prime Minister of Canada, Freemason, Knight of the Order of Bath, Knights Templar, and member Lafayette Royal Arch Chapter of Washington, D.C. In 1919 the Royal Institute of International Affairs was created, funded by the Astors as a club for 4 degrees Illuminati. This is the British branch of CFR, and in 1922 the Astors bought the London Times. In 1921 the Council on Foreign Relations Incorporated. Hitler took over the NSGWP, National Socialist German Workers' Party. Margaret Sanger founded the American Birth Control League and wrote The Pivot of Civilization, in which she called for the elimination of human weeds, for the cessation of charity because it prolonged the lives of the unfit, for the segregation of morons, misfits, and the maladjusted, and for the sterilization of genetically inferior races. That is what the elite really think of you. They view you as an infection that they must destroy. They blame all the war, death, poverty, starvation and pollution on you, and like the sheep you are, you believe it. You believe you are the ones causing the problems of this world, and so you will accept the elite's solution, which will eliminate you. AI. While brainwashed fanatics might not know why they are against abortion clinics, just as those in support of them don't educate themselves to realize that it was all created to control the population, perhaps we can all stop with the foolish, orchestrated, civil unrest movements long enough to stop the next wave of elimination from taking root? Unlikely, as everyone locks around waiting for someone else to do the work. 1922 King Tutankhamun's tomb opened in Egypt, invoking King Tut's curse. 14 violent deaths were linked to the curse. Mussolini, alleged British intelligence agent, comes to power in Italy and attempts to eliminate mafia in Sicily. Zionism, another Rothschild creation, was promoted. W. Averell Harriman, Fritz Thyssen and Friedrich Flick created several entities to help finance Hitler and to produce the weapons he would need to fight World War II. The German Steel Trust, Vereinigte Stahlwerk, produced 35% of Nazi Germany's explosives, 50.8% of Germany's pig iron, 38.5% of Nazi Germany's galvanized steel, 36% of Germany's heavy plate, 22.1% of Germany's wire, and many other things. Essential for Hitler, who was of course in the Rothschild bloodline. His right-hand man and assistant to Tesla, George H. Scaife Sr. and Son Jr., were smuggled out during Operation Paperclip. Hitler's cousin, George Scaife Jr.'s last name was changed to Bush. The publicly stated Bush lineage as given by the government consists of random people who had the name Bush added after they made him president. German-born Scaife, father of Daddy Bush, was thrust onto the Samuel Bush family tree with the name Prescott Sheldon Bush and claimed to be the youngest son of Samuel Prescott Bush and Flora Sheldon. That would be the origin of the Bush and Prescott names. Scaife and his friend Mengele, also smuggled to safety through Operation Paperclip, were part of CIA mind control experiments such as MKUltra. The SS and Nazis who were relocated during this operation were taken to the bases in Antarctica and Argentina. From the new identities were created, assignments given, and integration into their designated governments proceeded. George H. Scaife Jr., called George Herbert Walker Bush, became the 41st President of the United States. Scaife Jr. was Nikola Tesla's trusted assistant. His son, nicknamed Curious George, Tesla did not like or trust. George Sr.'s name was changed to Prescott Bush, and it is easy to find the rest. A side note about Hitler, whose name was changed yet again to Disney. Hitler's photo was taken at the Lake McDonald Lodge in Glacier National Park, Montana, on August 27, 1997. A whistleblower and ex-SS officer, Otto Skorzeny, was there. However, let us get back to the timeline. Dr. Green aka Joseph Mengele used to pull daisy petals while saying the words I love you not. If the last petal was I love you not, the child would be put to death. Surviving children were left traumatized. The I love you I love you not, pulls the child two ways with this message. It is an absolute, taking all control over the other. We see children playing this game today. A common practice among the top 13 families is to have an important, to the public, child secretly or quietly without fanfare, and adopt the child out to another family, which we saw blatantly in the case of President Obama. The child then takes on another last name, which hides the genealogy. In occult ceremonies, the biological parents willingly participate in these ceremonies, selling their children to the elite. For instance, in a ceremony for Mother of Darkness, the biological father must impregnate his young daughter who is being initiated into the Mothers of Darkness. The first baby by the girl must come from her biological father and must be sacrificed by her to Satan. Many of the Illuminati children are adopted out. Last names are not the criteria, but the blood is. It is more than just having the correct blood. The magic power, the mutation, in the blood is critical. Once a branch loses its occult power by dilution, its blood is nothing. In 1922, Alice Bailey and her husband Foster Bailey, founders of Lucifer's Trust, now called Lucy's Trust and World Goodwill, which is an occult organization in the UN, write Agenda 21. They are known Satanists, with Mr. Bailey being a 32-degree Mason. 1923, Jack Warner, founder of Warner Brothers, which was the leading motion picture studio that introduced the first feature-length talking picture. The Warners are confirmed Masons. Time magazine and US Weekly News magazine are founded by Henry R. Luce and Britton Haddon, two young Yale graduates and reporters on the Baltimore Sun. The Times board chairman, Andrew Heiskell, was associated with David Rockefeller and being from Yale. Obviously, Skull and Bones members. During this time, the International Police, Interpol, was founded in Vienna. The assassination of Pancho Villa took place in Mexico, and the founding of Hitler's National Socialist, Nazi, Party in Germany. In 1924, J. Edgar Hoover takes over FBI. Lovecraft ghostwrites for Houdini, a confirmed Mason. By the way, we will cover in a future video the links between Lovecraft, CERN and D-Wave. Benjamin Creme was born. As a child, he was deeply into the occult and witchcraft and was proclaimed as the John the Baptist of the Antichrist. Russell recommended his followers read the book, Angels and Women. He personally supervised its editing and said it was beneficial because it throws light on certain biblical subjects. It was dictated by a fallen angel to a female spirit medium. Second Watchtower President Joseph Rutherford concurred with Russell's advice and advertised it in his magazine, Golden Age, recommending it and offering a discount to Golden Age readers. 1925, Joseph Rutherford of the Jehovah's Witnesses predicted an Armageddon and fails again, much to your relief, I'm sure. Curtis organizes the Institutes of Pacific Relations in at least 10 countries for the Round Table Group. We see the rise of the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, due to Rockefeller and other foundation funding. The crystal skull is discovered in ruins of Lubantan in British Honduras, and Paul Valeris Collins, writer, studied art in Paris, interviewed Italian strongman Benito Mussolini for Outlook magazine. He was a Presbyterian and a Freemason. In 1929, the Great Depression begins. Prescott Bush loses all his money in the 1929 stock market crash. The Harrimans came again to financially help them. The Fabian Socialists created the Political and Economic Planning Group, PEP, of which Mason Viscount Waldorf Astoria was the leader. He also led a confidential program that the PEP created, which was implemented through the British government. This is described in the book Principles of Economic Planning. George Bernard Shaw is very, very close to Lady Nancy Astor, who became the first female member of Parliament. Nancy Astor wrote The Natural History of the Vampire and other books. Waldorf and Nancy Astor visit Russia as good friends of Stalin and are consequently treated as royalty. Christian Science, also supported by the Astors, is a front for witchcraft, again mixing the lines between occult and truth. David Astor, the Honorable, attended Bilderberger meetings in 1957 and 1966. In the 1930s, the mafia becomes integral part of the U.S. organized crime. Sums of money are spent in education by the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations. Money goes to promote John Dewey, Marxism, a one-world government agenda, and socialism. Continuing political assassinations accompany Nazi rise to power. Margaret Sanger published the Birth Control Review. In that magazine she openly supported the infanticide program promoted by Nazi Germany and publicly championed Adolf Hitler's goal of Aryan supremacy. Ernst Rudin, a member of the Nazi Party, and director of German medical experimentation programs, served as an advisor to Sanger's organization. The Watchtower Society claimed to be creationists at this time, openly opposed to eugenics, while many atheistic evolutionists were generally supportive. Watchtower supported the Sanger depopulation movement. U.S. Public Health Service recruited 400 syphilis-infected black men, after a government-planned syphilis outbreak, what we call a false flag, PSYOP, bio-drill. The government's planned human experimentations which they carry out and blast in the news openly every day. The participants were all told that they would be treated for their infections, but instead of treating their illness, all medicines were withheld. The black men were then actively prevented from obtaining treatment elsewhere and experiments were done on many patients. This study lasted until 1972. Edward S. Van Den founded the Planned Parenthood Center of Syracuse, New York. Planned Parenthood Federation of America was created by the elite for depopulation. As they state, to provide leadership, making effective means of voluntary fertility regulation including contraception, abortion, sterilization, and infertility services, available and fully accessible to all as a central element of reproductive health, stimulating and sponsoring relevant biomedical, socioeconomic, and demographic research, developing appropriate information, education, and training programs to increase knowledge about human reproduction and sexuality. Planned Parenthood maintains a 5,000-volume library on abortion, sterilization, and population control. One of its leaders, Alan F. Guttmacher, signed the Humanist Manifesto, and President Fay Wattleton was awarded Humanist of the Year in 1986. In this same time, 1930s, the Reichstag fire, set by Nazis, was used to bring martial law, and there was an attempted assassination of Franklin Roosevelt, but Chicago Mayor Cermak was killed instead. Darrell F. Zanuck co-founded 20th Century Productions in Hollywood and is a confirmed Mason. Other assassinations that took place during this time include that of S.M. Gierov, Soviet leader and Stalin collaborator. Assassination of Senator Huey Long. First legal lobotomy performed by Egas Moniz in Lisbon. Beginning of Moscow Purge trials in which numerous communist leaders were tortured into false confessions and then executed much like Al-Qaeda prisoners. Hitler's Black Order began. In 1937 the Spanish Civil War begins, the first of 48 lost colony stones found in North Carolina. Stones tell the story of the supposedly lost Roanoke Island colony and are found all over the state. Amelia Earhart Putnam, aviator, disappears, over the South Pacific. The assassination of Leon Sedov, Trotsky's son, and the first assassination attempt against Trotsky took place. Nazis invade Austria. Interpol is taken over by Nazis. German expedition to Antarctica stakes out 600,000 square kilometers of land. Antarctica is owned by the families, bought through this and other covers. During this time electroshock treatment is discovered and, like every new discovery, instantly practiced on children and mentally ill. Orson Welles' dramatization of H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds scares American radio listeners in a social experiment, or what we would call a terror drill false flag like 9/11. The show was so realistic to the public they reacted accordingly. Born in 1936, Jorge Bergoglio was going to propose to his girlfriend, when he stopped in the church for confession and had an epiphany. He decided that day to become a priest. probably the same epiphany every pope-to-be gets when he receives a tap on the shoulder from the elite. He is an accomplice in the kidnapping of 2 Jesuit priests in Argentina during the Dirty War. A lawyer filed a suit against him regarding this issue. The priests, Orlando Yorio and Franz Jalix, were tortured, but found alive 5 months later, drugged and semi-naked. Yorio accused Bergoglio of effectively handing them over to the death squads by declining to tell the regime that he endorsed their work. Yorio, who died in 2000, said in a 1999 interview that he believed that Bergoglio did nothing to free us. In fact, just the opposite. Jalix moved to a monastery in Germany and refused to discuss it after being threatened into silence. Today we see the child-raping murderer as Pope Francis, our current Antichrist. In the 1950s and through the wartime, Bergoglio is known to have been living in the same town and acquainted with Dr. Mengele aka Jose Mengele, Fritz Hollmann, and Peter Hochbichler, who was also working with the CIA. CIA agents frequented them as well as Mossad agent Sisser Hel, Shimon Ben Aharon and 3 others who had been in Argentina since April 1960. Adolf Eichmann aka Ricardo Clement was in Buenos Aires, being kept safe by CIA and Mengele during this time, and Stanley Ann Dunham, who was the poster mum for Barack Obama, is known to have dropped in for a visit to be sterilized. In 1956 until 1958, CIA agent Stanley Ann Dunham, daughter of CIA agent Stanley Dunham, moved to Buenos Aires to have tests done on her by Mengele, to be prepped for service. She was then put in place at the Hawaii University to pick up her next assignment. Her adoptive son, supposedly born Barry Mohammed Soebaka on March 7, 1960. Argentina is definitely a hot spot and filled with interesting events and experiments. On a side note, Rothschild in his research work 1966 argued that dual citizenship was an influential factor in the decision of the majority of non-Africans not to seek Kenyan citizenship after independence, despite non-discrimination assurances by local Asians and Europeans leaders. He discussed the variance between official and non-official views of citizenship, which largely regarded non-Africans who had adopted Kenyan citizenship as being motivated by convenience, rather than identification with the core group. In the 1940s, Winston Churchill, England's Secretary of War, held a seat on Parliament, was Prime Minister, also a Mason and a Druid. Next we see the assassination of Leon Trotsky in Mexico. British secret police are renamed to MI5 and MI6 for duration of war. Interpol moved to near Berlin, with Reinhard Heydrich in charge. Nazis allegedly begin building Hitler's secret bunker in Antarctica. Roosevelt sends General Wild Bill Donovan on info-gathering mission to Europe, and Donovan recommends a Central Intelligence Organization. The U.S. State Department creates Division of Special Research headed by CFR member Paspalski. The Nazis believed that Rhd-O was proof of their ET origin from their ancient gods. They did many tests and experiments on people to figure out more about genetics and especially the Aryan blood. Next, Japan attacks a U.S. fleet at Pearl Harbor. It enabled the American government to call martial law and round up Asian families, putting them in their concentration camps now named FEMA camps. Donovan is made head of new Office of Coordinator of Information. Harvey Hollister Bundy Sr. was one of the leaders in the Manhattan Project, as mentioned before, developing the atom bomb and doing liaison work between the War Department and Office of Scientific Research and Development. The assassination of Interpol Chief Heydrich in Czechoslovakia takes place, and Donovan's loci evolves into the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, while Nathan Knorr assumes control of the Jehovah's Witnesses. In 1942 the Stuart, intermarried with a Rockefeller. They own numerous theaters in California which have secret tunnels to daycare centers where children are ritually abused and programmed. It is astonishing how many people are blind, giving their children to others to raise because they don't have the mental capacity to take care of their offspring and protect them. James C. Stewart, a member of the Illuminati, built the Mormons' Capitol building in Salt Lake City, 60 Wall Tower in New York, and the Savoy Hotel in London that are used for the Pilgrim Society headquarters. James belonged to the Pilgrim Society as well. Stuart MacDonald was president of Army War Shows from 1942 to 1943. William A. Harriman serves as U.S. ambassador to the Soviet Union. LSD-25 is made by Swiss chemist Albert Hoffman. Juan Perón and other pro-Nazi leaders take power in Argentina. Pilots on both sides of the war report seeing Foo Fighters while flying war missions. These unexplained flying objects are seen by many today as well as through history, described as red or orange orbs. The government has never given an explanation for the orbs, though it is easy to explain for those with eyes to see. One explanation of this might be found at the Advanced Robotics Systems Engineering Laboratory, where they have several versions of unmanned aerial vehicles. Although the orbs have been seen for many centuries and all over the world, this facility has come up with a very close replication. We also covered this topic in great detail a few months back, the alien deception. Continuing on, more attempted assassinations of Hitler. Nazis begin sending millions of dollars worth of jewels, paintings and cash to Argentina for safekeeping. Russian NKVD is reorganized as MGB. Donovan prepares a plan for Roosevelt to establish a central intelligence agency, which was later reconsidered by Truman. American band leader Glenn Miller disappears on a flight over the English Channel. The assassination of James Forrestal took place at Bethesda Hospital Neurological Ward, after his attempt to warn Roosevelt of Illuminati plot. Mussolini was killed. Okay, Anons, it's getting late. We will continue this on May 27th, at 17:45 Pacific Time. This is where it starts to get really interesting. See you then. This has been a message from the anonymous charity known as The Collective. Today's broadcast date is May 26, 2019. End of transmission.
Boy, it would have been nice to have known about those back in 2019, huh? These are loaded with information. That stuff about Obama is fascinating. Made in a lab by Dr. Joseph Mengele in Argentina. There's a fascinating story, huh? I've read that story. So that's where we're going to wrap up tonight, because the next part of the series is the one video I seem to be missing from my file. There's still quite a few left, but it's pretty cool getting deeper into the modern, closer to the modern times, I guess. Wild stuff here. I wish I knew who wrote all this out. I connected to George news thing somehow. I don't know. Anyway, any other news popping up? No. So, pretty positive night, guys. Hang in there. Keep reading between the lines. Some fascinating information tonight. And don't forget your future role in all this. It's never too late to reinvent yourself. We have got to lay a foundation now that stands the test of time for your children's 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 children, so that they don't ever end up in this situation. Right? I love you guys. You're the best patriots I know. You guys rock. We have a nice little community here. Welcome to all the new people here. Just keep hanging in there. I know it's things are hitting the rough point as far as costs and everything, but I think we're about to turn a corner here. So Just keep hanging in there. And we'll be back tomorrow night, looking at everything, talking more. We'll watch more of the Bloodline series, and it'll be fun. It's good to have you all here in our little community. God bless you. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest for rights. We've got some difficult days ahead.
And we are going to make our country great again.
I just want to do God's will. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time.